What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 2 of Chapter 31 Swain vs Kuzan, advertisement. If you hurt my crew like this, it will disgrace me. Swain appeared in front of Norton. With one hand floating, a mirror made of seawater suddenly appeared. Swain gathered his strength and punched the mirror made of seawater. Then, a powerful shockwave was emitted, which seemed to be able to tear the air apart. All at once, the densely packed ice arrows were scattered and turned into a pile of ice fragments. But the shockwave didn't seem to stop yet. When it passed by the sea, it also tore the frozen sea surface apart. "Here comes another awesome guy," Kuzan said, "but you look strange." "Really? I'm not a stranger to you, General Aokiji? So you know me. Now that I'm so famous, that's really cool," Kuzan said with a smile. Norton, who was recovering from his injuries behind Swain, was also surprised when he heard that the other party was General Marine. "So it's a general?" He couldn't help but look at Kuzan. Kuzan also turned to look at Norton at this time. "The person behind you is not easy to deal with." Kuzan also put his other hand into his pocket at this time. But there was still a deep chill on his body, and it was obvious that he had not chosen to stop yet. "Leave him to me. If you can't protect him, he will kill you." Norton and Swain were silent after hearing this. The scene was tense for a moment. Kuzan couldn't see Swain's expression at this time, as the hat on his head covered his eyes. But he thought Swain would hand over Norton. After all, a general was here. Suddenly Swain laughed. "Hole, what nonsense are you talking about? How could I leave Norton to you?" Swain flatly refused. Kuzan took his hands out of his pockets, and the ground began to freeze around him. This battle is inevitable. Although Swain was unsure, he was indeed very excited at the moment. He wants to see what level his strength is in this sea. He stood in the air and stomped his feet. Stepping on a wave, it broke, and then the frozen sea surface in front quickly broke, and waves more than 10 meters high rushed out from under the ice. Huge waves rushed towards Kuzan's slightly thin figure. Just when it was about to drown him, he opened his mouth slightly, and a cold air came out of his mouth, saying, "Ice Age." Z's. The sound of freezing water came from everywhere. The surrounding temperature dropped by dozens of degrees, and Swain could feel the cold even at noon. And he found that he had lost control of the frozen seawater. The freezing was even more intense than before. "Sure enough, I am more restrained," Swain thought silently in his heart. "But he doesn't only have fruit abilities. I saw him teleporting in front of Aokiji and attaching Ryusakura Haki to his fist. Then he punched Aokiji in the abdomen, beating him to pieces. He predicted it. Aokiji naturalizes in advance and anticipates his movements. Then it gradually condensed into a human shape in the distance. Swain looked at Aokiji with a heavy face, as expected of a general. Marine can put a bounty on the 4 emperors in this sea, a bounty on powerful pirates. These 3 generals are the most important. If you can't succeed in one blow, then try again. Swain ejected, his fist carrying unparalleled power. Kuzan's fist also had an armed color, and both sides swung it at the same time. The collision was like 2 meat grinders, and the impact caused cracks in the surrounding ground. Swain roared, poured Conqueror's Haki into his hand, and punched Aokiji back. And Swain also took several steps back before stopping. Advertisement evenly matched. "This is a great general. He is truly among the strongest in this sea." Aokiji also put away his laziness and said, "It's so powerful and domineering, it's really amazing. You have already reached this level at such a young age. However, the last such strong man is still in prison." Of course he was talking about Bullet, former One Piece Roger's crew member. This time it was Aokiji's turn to take the initiative. After several more fights, Swain was still dodged by Aokiji despite his strong moves. This made him feel a little helpless. In fact, Swain's knowledge and color should be stronger than Aokiji's, but Aokiji is made of steel. Every time he grew up, he made progress in danger, and Swain did it through Warri's teachings. This is a bit like the reason why Luffy was tortured by Katakuri 2 years later. What Rayleigh taught him was always on paper, and true strength comes from fighting. "Ah, it's a bit embarrassing." Kuzan was a little dissatisfied. After all, being beaten to a draw by such an unknown boy, how could he still hang out in Marine? Violent Pheasant Mouth. A giant icebird rushed towards Swain. High Big Touch Kill. Several huge tentacles appeared behind Swain and fought towards the icebird at the same time. When they met again, they were evenly matched. When Norton saw the battlefield here, he was also learning combat experience. Although the Aokiji fruit is a bit restrained by Swain, Swain's domineering power is also much more powerful than Aokiji. Neither side could do anything to the other. In the blink of an eye, there were dozens more rounds of fighting, and Swain's weaknesses were gradually exposed. Too little combat experience. Details determine victory or defeat among masters. Whoever can avoid exposing flaws will be the winner. But obviously Swain does not yet meet this condition. Kuzan caught an opening from Swain, and the cold air fell from his legs to the ground. Ice Age. The situation of the battle changes in an instant. Swain felt the unprecedented danger and quickly turned his body back. But when he landed, Kuzan also came to his side, and his body was already close to Swain. "Just stand there quietly," Kuzan said. Zitsa. Swain was directly frozen into an ice sculpture. He didn't even have time to defend himself with conquerors. You are too young, although you are very strong, it only ends here, Kuzan judged mercilessly. He cannot tolerate Swain continuing to grow. He will inevitably become a big pirate in the future and become a hidden danger to Marine. He wanted to nip this sign in advance. Captain, Norden shouted hastily. Seeing that Swain was about to be killed by Kuzan, in desperation, the wings behind him flapped so fast that they could no longer be caught by the naked eye. In just one breath, a sharp sound sounded, which was so fast that it cut through the air. Norden's speed was extremely fast, as if he disappeared directly, and Kuzan could no longer sense what he saw, heard or felt. How could I let you touch my captain? Norden said angrily. Scorching flames grew on his feet, kicking Kuzan away from Swain. Very good. Swain, who was frozen into an ice sculpture, saw that Norden had bought time for himself. The next moment, he broke through the ice and came out. Not dead. It was a thrilling moment just now. Although I really want to ask why Norden is so fast, it is obvious that he still has to deal with the formidable enemy in front of him at this time. Thank you. Swain said to Norden. Norden also nodded, and then sat aside to rest. He just tried his best to increase his speed. Fortunately, it worked and Swain was saved. Ah lala, what a headache, you guys are too difficult, Kuzan said helplessly. You go somewhere safe. Swain told Norden to stay away so as not to hurt him later. There was anger in his eyes. Although Aokiji was the general he admired most, but he had apparently killed him just now, and his appreciation turned into anger. He is going to use his last trump card. This trick was learned in the 3 years before going to sea, and it is also the development of this fruit. He stabilized his breathing, and the next moment, he said in a deep voice. Blessing from the sea god. 3 wave circles appeared on his wrists and legs, and they began to rotate around when they appeared, and several ripples appeared on the wave circle. His domineering energy is also attached to it, and it feels like it is endless. Advertisement Chapter 32 Fierce Battle, Advertisement. Blessing from the sea god. Swain's limbs are surrounded by 3 blue circles. There are also black conquerors flowing between the sea blue circles. But this is not Conqueror's entanglement, it's just Conqueror's encirclement used to increase defense. You seem a little different, Kuzan said when he saw Swain's appearance. There was a faint worry in his heart. This was the foresight that came from his knowledge. Unlike Ka-Er's prediction of the future, the things his knowledge and color foresaw clearly made him a little worried. What could it be? He had some doubts in his heart. Norden, who was far away, saw excitement in his eyes when he saw Swain. He could feel that Swain had become stronger in this state, and he expected his captain to defeat the enemy in front of him. There was a look of disdain in Swain's eyes, but this was not intentional. But after using Poseidon's blessing, the whole body's condition improved to a higher level. Naturally, his own temperament changed. Let me see if I can match the general. Swain made a fist with his right hand, stretched out his left hand, and staggered the distance between the 2 hands. Mirror Sea Moon. At this time, 5 mirrors appeared in front of Swain, and the projected full moon was reflected in them. He punched out, 2 of the sea moons shattered, and 2 forces capable of distorting space attacked each other. Kuzan's vigilance increased, and he could sense the terrifying power contained in it. At the same time, he stretched out his hands. Ice wall. A thick ice wall formed from the ground, extremely generous. Even countless cannonballs may not be able to break through this defense. The shock wave caused by the shattering came into contact with the ice wall. The violent scene did not happen, but it was very calm and did not make any noise. Swain smashed 3 more sea mirror moons in succession. Could it be? Norden on the side saw this quiet scene and was about to speak. The next moment, something changed. The ice wall suddenly looked like a city wall that had been knocked down, and ice cubes fell everywhere. It's like a press pressing a block of iron. Before reaching a critical point, the ice wall and impact force will not change in any way. Once either party fails, it will be crushed into pieces. This is the quiet scene that just happened. Kuzan, who was behind the ice wall, also fell back several meters. My throat felt sweet and I spit out a mouthful of blood. Shocked. Norden stood aside blankly. What a powerful force, Norden sighed. Swain is getting stronger with each battle. On the other hand, Kuzan no longer looks as calm as before. This kid. We must not let him leave here. Kuzan wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Do we still want to fight? Swain's voice was like a loud bell, echoing far away. Swain's domineering power is also rapidly draining, and his physical strength is about to reach its lowest point. At this time, his state is also strong at the outside but weak at the same time. If they fight again, he has no confidence in keeping Kuzan here. If we can force him back, that will definitely be the best result. But he underestimated the Marine General's belief. Swain felt helpless when he saw Kuzan's expression of fighting again. This man's self-esteem was hurt. And he naturally wants to bring Swain, the culprit, to justice personally. Advertisement time is limited. While the current state has not yet reached the bottom, Swain must make a quick decision. He looked like a ghost. He came to Kuzan and whipped out with his whip. Kuzan hadn't adjusted well yet and was caught off guard by Swain's move. He had no choice but to protect his right side with his hand, but even so, he was still thrown away by the strange force on Swain's leg. If there are any Marine soldiers here who see this scene, they probably won't believe that they have the wrong eyes. Kill him while he's sick. Swain would not have any spare hands. Before Kuzan could stop rolling on the ground, he stepped on his body again. But this time, he was trampled directly, and his feet turned into ice. No, I fell into a trap, Swain thought to himself. Can it still be used like this? Swain's face is full of black lines. Kuzan really pushed his fruit understanding to the limit. It used ice cubes to create a fake body of him rolling on the ground, which could deceive Swain's perception. Sure enough, the real Kuzan is already behind Swain. I only heard him say in a deep voice, falling under the sea. These 4 simple words are like the talisman of the King of Hell. Kuzan threw his body into the ground, and then several ice cracks extending forward appeared on the ground, dividing the ground. Swain blasted forward to break it, but the ice crack was extremely hard. Domineering? Apart from this, Swain couldn't think of any other reason. After Kankan dodged too, others attacked him. He scratched Swain several times in succession, rubbing away all his flesh and blood. Swain's condition is about to bottom out, and even his speed has slowed down significantly. We can't dwell on it any longer. Norton, let's go. Norton helped Swain fly into the air. Swain took a deep look at Kuzan and then left. Seeing Swain walking away, Kuzan couldn't hold himself up anymore and sat down on the ground. He took out a golden telephone bug and said, "Spandam, come to the port." Okay. The person inside stammered. In fact, he had been present when Norton and Aokiji fought, but he was watching the battle from a nearby house. He always thought that Aokiji could win easily, and that was actually the case. He could easily win against Norton. But the fight with Swain really surprised him. That young boy could actually hurt Aokiji, which made him resentful because he was so envious of Swain's youth and strength. After a moment, he appeared in front of Kuzan with a bow and a nod. "Is there any wine?" Kuzan asked without even raising his head. Spandam took out a bottle of liquor, and Aokiji drank it all in one go. Then he lay down on the ground and fell asleep. Spandam looked helpless and had no choice but to carry Kuzan on his back and leave. Swain on the other side also felt uncomfortable. Continuously using overloaded moves will result in coughing up blood. "Should we find a doctor?" Norton said. "No need, this injury is not enough to call a doctor." Swain refused. Just after everyone calmed down, a person suddenly appeared on the battlefield. Apparently none of them noticed him. "This is big news. If I can write the president well, I will definitely make a lot of money. I've even thought of the title, so I'm going to write it now." He immediately picked up a pen and paper and recorded the details and scenes on the battlefield. News that will shock the world is about to be released. Advertisement Chapter 33 Swain's new ship. Advertisement. The battlefield where Swain and Kuzan fought has now become a skating playground for some children. Laughter and laughter erupted one after another, as if there had never been a war here. 3 days passed peacefully like this. On this day, a warship docked in the port. "Allah, I know." Kuzan sat on the fence by the sea and watched the children playing. The sea breeze blew by, and he pressed his hat with his hand. There was Sengoku's voice on the other end of the phone. "I need you to tell Swain's situation in detail and make corresponding countermeasures." Kuzan also learned from Spandam that the other party was called Swain. After hanging up the phone, Kuzan stretched and said, "We can't be lazy anymore. It's all Swain's fault." Warring States was meticulous in doing things, so he naturally asked Kuzan to come back in person to report the situation. And in a newspaper office, each printing machine is working non-stop, which is speeding up newsprinting. A guy in the newspaper office was praising the person in front of him. "You did a good job this time. You will get 1% of the profit from this issue of the newspaper." The paparazzi in front of him was naturally overjoyed. The profit of one issue of the newspaper could reach hundreds of millions of berries, and he could get 1% of it, which would be 1 million berries. For an ordinary person like him, it was a huge sum of money, which would allow him to avoid working for 2 years. The front page of the newspaper read, "General Marine and pirate rookie Swain ended in a draw." This war was also featured as Water Capital Incident. The next column of the news was also specially circled, "One Piece rookie ace refuses to become a Shichibukai." Birdman Morgans lit a cigarette in his mouth and murmured, "The future of this ocean may not be dominated by marine." Swain, who was in the water capital, was completely unaware of the fact that he was about to become the focus of the news. Even if he knew about it, he would not express anything. After all, there is different news every day, and he will naturally be happy if it always dominates the headlines. There are still some benefits to increasing your reputation. Just like after Luffy defeated Doflamingo, he became so famous that he recruited countless subordinates for a while, and they voluntarily merged into the Straw Hat Group. What impressed me the most was the loyal road fan with green hair, but Swain had forgotten his name. 3 more days passed. Swain's injuries have healed to some extent, and he has been recovering from his injuries for the past few days. I have been recalling the battle with Kuzan, and every time I recall it, I can learn a lot about the use of Haki. For example, in the first fight, Kuzan was able to accurately neutralize and dodge Swain's attack by predicting his next move from his breathing. Seeing and hearing colors, if you truly cultivate to the highest level, you can even predict your next action from every move of any part of your body. You go and see if Luke has finished your armor this afternoon. "It's time for us to leave this place," Swain said. Norton was lying on the rocking chair, eating fruit and drinking wine seriously. When he suddenly heard Swain speak, he choked. He kept coughing up wine from his mouth, and it was so spicy that his yellow face turned red. Swain then went out to see if his ship was finished. As soon as he arrived at Carrera Company, He heard a slightly hoarse voice shouting, "This ship is finally completed, super." He folded his arms and struck a pose. Wearing only a pair of underwear, he looked very coquettish in the crowd. Swain stepped forward and asked, "Frankie?" The man suddenly turned around and asked, "I seem to hear a beautiful woman calling me." As a result, Swain was the only one standing there, and Frankie just turned his head to the side and pretended not to hear. This made Swain's face full of black lines. Advertisement. "Stop it. That's Mr. Swain." At this time, Iceberg came out and introduced Frankie. When Swain and Kuzan were fighting, the iceberg blocked the surrounding area, although there was a loud noise from that place. But no one came close to see it, so it's normal that they don't know Swain. "I'm sorry, it turns out you were the owner of this ship." "It's okay." Swain wasn't actually too surprised when he saw the real members of the Straw Hats. Because the angle they were standing at was different, the current Straw Hats were not worthy of his too much attention. He suddenly had a bad taste and asked Frankie, "Do you want to get on my ship? I am a very powerful pirate." "No," he refused directly and ruthlessly. Swain is still imagining that even if Frankie agrees, he will not be allowed to board the ship. Okay. Swain was a little shocked when he heard such a flat refusal. "I can only comfort myself by saying, if we are not a family, we will not enter the same house." "Mr. Swain, this ship is made of atom tree according to your instructions. It is now completely completed. Please check whether you are satisfied with it." Swain looked at the boat in front of him, which was 50 meters long and 20 meters wide. He jumped to the bow of the ship. The first thing he saw was the tall mast. Below was a green grassland with some fitness supplies, dining tables and chairs. The ship has a 3-story building, like a rural-style building. "Very good." Swain excitedly gave a thumbs up to the boatman below, and the boatman laughed loudly when he was appreciated. Nothing makes them happier than a compliment. Then he pulled Bingshan aside and said, "Brother Bingshan, you still remember the last time I saved your life?" This is natural." Thinking of his last experience, he couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. "Then you owe me a favor, right?" Swain said in a persuasive way. This is also a favor that nature owes you. Now I ask you to return this favor to me," Swain said without blushing or heartbeat. Bingshan was also a little confused. There is no way to ask others to return the favor immediately, but look at Swain's anxious look. "I'm afraid if he doesn't agree to it, he will probably get punched in the next moment." "Okay, no matter what you say, I will try my best to promise you." As long as it's not too much, he was afraid that Swain would be shameless, so he spoke loudly. "Then he is a mute and eats Coptus chinensis, so I remind him in advance. I want you to introduce me to a shipwright who can go to sea with me." Bingshan didn't expect Swain's request to be so simple. "It's easy. I'll send a letter to all the shipbuilders in the city today. You can pick one tomorrow." Swain couldn't help but be overjoyed. As the largest shipyard in the world, the Water City's craftsmanship was naturally unparalleled. Otherwise, Swain wouldn't have come all the way from South Blue to find a shipwright. At this time, a group of newsbirds flew from the sky and dropped several newly published newspapers and reward orders. One of them fell on Frankie's head, who was grabbing his underwear. He picked it up and glanced at the reward notice. When I saw the bounty person and the bounty amount, I instantly became dumbfounded. "It's him?" Turning to look at Swain. Advertisement. Chapter 34. Let's go. Poseidon. Advertisement. Swain, who was standing on the bow of the ship, was communicating with the iceberg when he suddenly heard an exclamation from the crowd below. Then the boatmen stared at Swain, as if they were seeing some kind of monster. Swain was looked at inexplicably. He jumped off the boat to see what was going on, but wherever he went, the boatmen avoided him. "What are you doing? How are you treating your guests?" Bingshan scolded angrily. "Iceberg. Come and take a look." Frankie waved to Bingshan, which made Bingshan confused. I was very surprised when I picked up the reward notice, but it was not as exaggerated as the boatman. There was a picture of Swain drawn on the paper. Name, Rox D. Swain. Origin, South Blue. Reward, 1.6 billion berry. It has to be said that Marine's efficiency is very high. After Kuzan reported his report, it took only 3 days to fully investigate his origins and what he had done. The second reward order, Hillary Norton, 300 million berries. However, Norton's bounty map had some changes, and his hair color and skin color were changed to look like a normal person. Even the unique wings behind him are gone. Swain guessed why they were surprised after seeing the reward order they had. It must be that Marine had issued a reward order for him. He got a look from Iceberg. Well, not bad, Swain thought with his chin in his hand. At this moment, not only they have received this newspaper, but people all over the world have received this reward order and news. East China Sea, Windmill Village. Look, it's Ace. He's very handsome now, Maginot said in the tavern. Dayton burst into tears as soon as he saw Ace's photo. This little kid is still alive and well. "Oh, well Dayton, how can you be so happy?" Maginot said, holding her forehead. "However, it seems that there are 2 new pirates. They are very powerful." "It's none of my business, as long as Ace is fine. Ever since Luffy went to sea not long ago, she has become worried about gains and losses." West Blue, on an island where it is snowing, red-haired Shanks is having a party with his companions. Beckman shows Shanks a newspaper. The newcomers now are really strong. Yeah, that guy Kuzan is not that easy to deal with," Shanks said after taking 2 sips of wine. "But Swain's last name is quite special. Shanks didn't know what he was thinking and continued to drink. North Blue, Vinsmoke family. Father, read today's newspaper, Youngji said eagerly. Why are you panicking? How unbecoming, he yelled angrily. Youngji was so frightened that he didn't dare to say a word. After seeing the news reported in the newspaper, I felt a little depressed. He had already redeemed Gray from Marine, and he also knew that the person who messed up his plan with White Hits was Swain. New World, Ghost Island. Sir, look at it quickly, one of the guys showed the newspaper to Kaido. But he was already so drunk that he was snoring like thunder. Jin, who was standing by his side, read the reports in the newspaper. Then he threw it into the fire, and a raging fire broke out in an instant. When Norton came back in the afternoon, Swain looked at Norton's new suit with stars in his eyes. How cool, Swain exclaimed. Advertisement. He circled Norton, knocking on the left and tinkering on the right. It was really embarrassing for Norton. Does this armor suit you? Swain asked. If the armor does not fit properly, the user's strength will be greatly reduced. Norton pressed his hand on the back of his head, and then his face was exposed. It fits great, Norton said. Swain punched it, leaving nothing behind, and the defense was pretty good. As for the weight of the armor, it doesn't matter to Norton at all. Then Swain threw the new reward order in front of him. Norton took one look at it and threw it away, saying disdainfully, why don't you give me a few bottles of wine to make me happy? Swain. My romantic partner came on my boat just to find a place to drink? Swain also looked at Norton with a dark look on his face, and he had already taken a few sips. Go to sea tomorrow. Swain decided. He now wants to enter the new world as soon as possible. That place is the Shira field where one can truly hone his strength. So fast? I'm not even ready yet. Swain was a little relieved to hear Norton say this. After all, this guy still wanted to prepare instead of drinking here. As a result, the next sentence slapped him in the face. I'm not ready to buy the wine yet. I have to rush now. Before he could finish his words, Swain kicked him out. The next morning, Swain and Norton were waiting on the boat for the shipwright that Iceberg found for him. Norton, what do you think our ship should be named? This is not my problem. I don't know much about literacy. He passed the question to Swain. Swain is the captain after all, he thought for a moment. Then call it Poseidon. Poseidon? Norton also found it interesting after hearing this. An hour later, standing under the boat was a man who was more than 2 meters tall and looked to be in his 30s, carrying a package and wearing a pair of round glasses. Swain jumped off the boat when he sensed someone coming. Looking around, he was the only one. I thought there would be a lot, but it seems like the iceberg's appeal isn't that great, Swain complained. Originally, he had to choose the best. In fact, he really mistakenly blamed Bingshan. You must know that Water City is an absolutely commercial island. The residents there are not short of money at all, and there is no war here, so naturally no one will go out to take risks. Would you like to board my ship? Swain still sincerely invited. No matter how many people come, even if he is the only one who comes. He has to show sincerity. The middle-aged man froze in place and said after a moment, I do. Swain breathed a sigh of relief. He was really afraid that if this person refused, then his Poseidon wouldn't be able to go very far and he would have to return for repairs, right? After all, he is not a peaceful master. Wait until everything is arranged. Swain gave the order. Raise the sails and set sail. Next stop, Sabodi Islands, go to New World. The three of them stood on the bow of the boat, and the sea breeze blowing in front of them made their clothes rustle. Boom. The sound of Poseidon starting up was heard. Heading towards the Sabodi Islands. Advertisement. Chapter 35 Meeting the Celestial Dragons. Advertisement. Captain. Norton called softly from the side. Swain is sleeping on the deck. The weather is good today. Before that, Swain asked Jody to make a master chair. Jody, this is the shipwright Swain recruited in the Water City. Swain simply described the shape and function to him and let him make it. According to Swain, this task is his test for entering the ship. Actually, it's someone's hedonism. It took him only 2 days to free him up, and the effect was pretty good. Since then, Swain has come to the deck to take a nap at noon every day. He is also considering whether the Sabodi Islands should have a beautiful maid. That would be perfect. Huh? Swain also got up in a daze when he heard someone calling him. What? He asked. There seems to be a fight ahead, Norton said, pointing forward. After nearly a month of sailing at sea, it was less than half a day away from the Sabodi Islands. There are so many pirates going to the New World that it is completely normal for them to start a fight when meeting someone at this time. Even Swain and his friends met 2 waves of pirates during their voyage, but when they saw it was Swain, they walked away angrily. Kidding. This is a pirate with 1.6 billion belly, and it can tie with the general. How could I be stupid enough to try it? This is the common sentiment of the pirates who met Swain. In fact, that's not a bad thing to say. Swain is probably one of the people with the highest bounty on the Grand Line at this time. 1.6 billion is still too little for a pirate who is as good as a general. After all, after the 4 Emperors Clown Buggy founded the Cross Guild later, he offered a bounty to pirates, and 1 general was worth 3 billion berry. It's enough to show Swain's strength. Swain looked in the direction of Norton's finger, and sure enough, 2 waves of people started fighting. But the strange thing about the situation is that one is chasing and the other is running. The group of people who escaped did not fight back. Even though the ship had been blown up and on fire, he still didn't fight back. Is this man mentally ill? Norton couldn't help but mocked. You were beaten and you didn't fight back? There is something wrong with this inappropriate brain? If he fights back, he will probably die even worse. Jody also came over and said. Swain was also watching silently. Now it was Norton's turn to look confused. Dragon people? Norton finally noticed the flag of the ship behind. Let's drive over, Swain ordered. After hearing this, Jody was a little confused and said, it's better if we don't provoke them? After all, this is the perception of most people in the pirate world. Celestial dragons. Supreme. Even if you are bullied, you cannot fight back. But, Swain doesn't want to listen to bullshit rules. He has disliked the Tianlong people for a long time. In the eyes of others, they are the supreme gods. In his eyes, it's just a bunch of excuses. Drive over, Swain ordered again. The tone left no room for doubt. He knew Jody's advice was good. But, he just came to find trouble with the Tianlong people. The Poseidon sped forward with Jody at the helm, and on the side of the Tianlong people. Fire. Blast them into cannon fodder. Damn untouchable. How dare you walk in front of me? Two men wearing bubble rings said one after the other. Okay. His subordinates knelt on one knee and obeyed. On the pirate ship being attacked. Captain, if we don't fight back, all of us will die here. What are you talking about? That's a celestial dragon, a celestial dragon. It's not a cat or a dog. If we fight back, we will die worse, the captain shouted in fear. Looking at the useless captain in front of him, he was helpless. He picked up the gun, pointed it, and said, quickly give the order. Dickie, what are you doing? The captain stopped yelling when facing the gun. Bang shot. The man named Dickie was shot to the ground. The back of his head was bleeding and he was dead. Dickie. Advertisement. The captain watched the man who had been with him since he went to sea fall to the ground. All the laughter of the past, all the good memories of the past, flooded into his mind at this moment. He died. The fear of the celestial dragons in my heart. He was instantly filled with anger. I am going to kill you, the captain shouted to the celestial dragon who raised his pistol in front of him. The dragon man was looking at him with contempt that day. It seemed that an ant had died just now, but his ant seemed a little noisy. Presumptuous. How dare you disrespect God? A man in a suit appeared and said. This is naturally the bodyguard of the Tianlong people. Point to the gun. His fingers were covered in military colors. Directly penetrated his chest. What the bodyguard didn't expect was that the man in front of him was not dead yet. The anger in the captain's heart made him unable to feel the pain in his chest. He raised the knife to chop the neck of the man in front of him. But, before the bodyguard could fight back, he fell to the ground after another gunshot. Before he died, the unwillingness in his eyes had not dissipated. What a waste. I have to do this myself, one of the Tianlong people behind him said. He fired a few more shots at the captain's head, and the red and white blood on his head flowed all over the place. Not bad, your marksmanship has improved again, the two Tianlong people chatted casually. It seemed that the dead ones were really two ants. The Tianlong people's ship has almost arrived at the port of the Saboti Islands. Looking forward, a large number of people have come to greet it. At this time, a boat of the same size came from behind them. On the bow of the Poseidon, Swain and Norton stood there. No fear. Another two untouchables who don't know how to live or die. The Tianlong people were completely angry. Today someone dared to offend him one after another. This time he was prepared to throw the offending man into the frying pan. But he never thought that no one would offend him at all. He alone is asking others to respect him like an emperor. But there are always people who break this rule, break his dream. Norton, burn their flags, Swain ordered. Norton moved his muscles, and there was a crackling sound of bones colliding. He has long been dissatisfied with the behavior of these Tianlong people. If the captain hadn't given the order, he would have rushed out and turned these scum into roasted suckling pigs. What Tianxiang dragon's hooves? Just suckling pigs' hooves. He flapped his wings and flew high into the sky. What does this pariah want to do? I saw Norton swinging his knife forward. A sword-shaped flame burned the flag flying high above. This knife was specially made for Luke by him. How dare you? Naturally, there are people on the Saboti Islands who are paying attention to these changes. That pirate flag looks a bit familiar. It's the new pirate from a while ago, Swain. Someone recognized Swain standing on the Poseidon. The one in full armor is Norton with 300 million berries. They're declaring war on the world government. How reckless. If you offend the Tianlong people, they will not live long. That's not necessarily the case. Swain is a man who can tie up with General Kuzan. Everyone discussed. Some people agree and some people refute it. But they still underestimated Swain's courage. Offended the Tianlong people? He is also planning to kill them. P.S. It is not the author's typo. Swain also took action. With a thought, he slowly raised his right hand upward. Suddenly, the sea began to become rough. Immediately afterwards, a wave of nearly 100 meters began to gather. The dragon's ship looked like an ant at this moment. Advertisement Chapter 36 Shock, the tragic death of the celestial dragon. Advertisement, what happens? The waves stirred up by Swain shook the nearest island. Look, is there a sea earthquake? Everyone on the island panicked. And the Tianlong people who were in the center of the waves were no longer as coquettish as before. How could a sea earthquake happen in this place? He said in disbelief. The Sabodi Islands are a large island composed of 79 small islands. Each island is a huge arcumen tree, and various houses are built on the huge tree roots. Due to this geographical location, it has not experienced any sea earthquakes in the past 100 years. No, it was the pirate who caused it. Someone with a keen eye can see a clue. The huge waves caused by the sea earthquake avoided Swain's position as if he had concerns. And wherever Swain points his hand, it flows. It's really strange. Who else could it be if he didn't cause it? Someone on the Draconian ship finally discovered that Swain was responsible. Start shooting at him randomly. However, the bullet did pass directly through his chest and head, and he returned to normal the next moment. Logia fruit power user. They were frightened in their hearts, but the panic on their expressions could not be concealed. After all, gods are also afraid of death. Sir, we have asked Marine headquarters for help. The men reported to the Tianlong people on the ship. A slap hit the man's face. We will be dead by the time they come here. Hurry up and kill that untouchable. The subordinate did not dare to refute, so he took the order and shot Swain. Swain felt very happy after seeing the fearful expression on the face of the celestial dragon. But his fun doesn't stop there. 100-meter waves rushed towards them. Under this kind of attack that was like a natural disaster, they had no power to fight back. Stab. Stab. The keel of the ship began to crack, and within a moment they fell into the water. Some of the bodyguards on the ship had their internal organs shattered by the waves. But the Tianlong people are still living under the impact of the huge waves, and their bodies flow with the waves. Looks like the clothes they were wearing saved them. As a celestial dragon, the noblest race in the world, the clothes on his body are naturally made of different materials. It's normal to not die. Everyone on the island saw that Swain had really taken action against the celestial dragons. This scene will probably be remembered by them for a lifetime. Admiral Marine will definitely be here soon. What will happen if we come? This Swain's strength is already comparable to that of a general, unless two of them come at once. This is the benefit of strong strength. You can't kill him or chase him. But it's just a thought. After all, if both Marine generals take action, it may be the 4 emperors who deserve it. Jody on the Poseidon also swallowed. He felt that he was on the wrong pirate ship. But for now, I can only hope that my captain can survive the subsequent hunt. Norton also smiled knowingly after seeing what Swain did. It suits his temper very well. If you don't accept it, do it. But Swain was far from done. He used seawater to lift the 2 celestial dragons high. The corners of his mouth raised and he smiled. Don't you like to be aloof? Then I will let you stand at the top. The seawater lifted them up to a height of 100 meters. Let everyone see their ugliness. One of them could no longer hold on, and his psychological defense was completely broken by Swain. Don't kill me, he said with a trembling voice. What are you doing, Hassan? How can you bow to the untouchables of the lower world? He was very angry, thinking that he had damaged the face of the Tianlong people. However, the celestial dragon named Hashung didn't think so much. He thought that there were still many slaves who didn't enjoy playing with them, and he couldn't die here. Continue to plead with Swain. But Swain just looked at him with disgust. Hashung was the man who just killed the captain of the ship. He saw the Tianlong man on the other side and said, I will give you a chance to live. Kneel down and beg for mercy. You can live. Then, the seawater under his feet was covered with a floor-sized weapon. Give him a place to kneel. Humph. Untouchable, he yelled. He ignored the chance of survival given by Swain at all. Even if he died, he would not bow to the man in front of him. Advertisement Swain was not angry when he heard the curse. He turned to Hashung and said, give you a chance to survive. Hashung was overjoyed after hearing this. He nodded quickly. Kill him. Only then can you live. Swain threw him a gun. Hasheng, don't believe him, said the Tianlong man on the side. But Hashung's desire to survive filled his heart. No one would listen to what he said. Anyway, if you kill him, you can survive. The more he persuaded, the more stable Hashung's hand with the gun became. This is the nature of human beings to survive. Swain looked at Hassan's performance with a smile on his face. Aren't you a good marksman? Don't you like killing people? I'll let you kill people right now. Hurry up, Swain said impatiently. The sound reached Hassan's ears like a Shinigami roll call. He cursed Swain countless times in his heart. He was heartbroken. Bang. 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 3 shots were fired, but only 1 shot hit the arm of the person opposite. The person opposite looked at Hashung with an incredulous expression and was too shocked to speak. Saint Hass is not a fool. If he kills his own compatriots, he will definitely be judged by the Knights of God after he returns. The current situation is between a rock and a hard place, and I already regret provoking such a murderous god. Simply fearless. Swain was already impatient. High-touch kill. On the sea surface 100 meters below, several long tentacles instantly sprang out. Hassan sensed danger. No, the words still came out. Peefed. PFFT. 2 sounds penetrated the flesh. It actually penetrated the entire head directly from the back of the head. Extremely cruel. Hashung's last expression was full of unwillingness. Wicked people will be punished by evil people. Swain is willing to be this evil person. Except for Swain and 3 other people. Many of the remaining people looked in shock, their eyes almost protruding from inside. I don't know who shouted, Run! A large crowd of people greeted Hashung, fleeing in all directions. They were really afraid that Swain would get angry. This scene will be recorded in history, because no one dares to kill Tianlong people in front of the public. The brave reporter captured this scene with his camera. This will be big news that shocks the world. Beep 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 beep. A series of phone calls rang. Hey, this is Marine Headquarters. I'm Sengoku Fleet Admiral. I have received shocking news. Please tell me. Warring States was mentally prepared. He had never seen any big storms. Two nobles, Richard Hassan and Antonio Fox, were brutally murdered by the pirate Swain on Island No. 1 of the Saboti Islands. Words that don't scare anyone don't kill anyone. Warring States stood up immediately. What? Please give Fleet Admiral instructions on the next mission. Warring States sat back to his original position, feeling extremely confused. He couldn't understand how someone could be so bold. Just like among the dozen or so supernovas that followed, Kid, who had the highest bounty on his head and was also the cruelest, did not dare to collide with the celestial dragons. Under the four emperors, attacking a celestial dragon is simply a death sentence. And Swain became the breaker of this rule, a true lone warrior. Which general is closest to the Saboti Islands now? Sengoku asked the correspondent around him. Reporting to Fleet Admiral, it's Admiral Akainu. He's on a mission and won't arrive until the day after tomorrow at the earliest. Hearing this, Warring States slapped the desk into pieces. Stop his mission. At the same time, in my name, he must arrest Swain tomorrow, Warring States said angrily. Very little time is coming. Is it possible that if he were to arrest Swain personally, would Marine lose face? Yes, the correspondent immediately contacted Akainu. Advertisement Chapter 37 Girl Roland, Advertisement. Saboti Islands, Island No. 1. Where are the people who greeted me? All of them ran away. Are you not coming to greet me? Swain said without shame. Norton took a serious look at Swain. The captain is so shameless. Are you here to greet him? Norton complained crazily in his mind. Jody was also speechless. Weird. Let's act separately. Swain told everyone what they should do. Norton went to buy some daily necessities and food. Jody went to coat the Poseidon. To go to New World, he had to pass through Fishman Island. The water pressure 10,000 meters under the sea is not something that can be easily talked about. At the same time, the news that Swain had killed the celestial dragons gradually spread. Island No. 39. In a tavern, except for a white-haired middle-aged man, there were no customers around. Marine's troop strength seems to have increased recently. Yes. I heard that a pirate named Swain killed 2 celestial dragons, a middle-aged woman replied. This kid is so brave. He did what I always wanted to do, the middle-aged man laughed. Yes, there are not many young people with such courage. I really want to meet my boy, Shaki said with a smile. Kill the celestial dragons and burn the flag. Throughout the history of the pirate world, no one can do it. This is the courage that belongs to Swain. The two people talking were Rayleigh and Shaki, who lived in seclusion on the Saboti Islands. It depends on whether he can stop the world government's crazy revenge, Rayleigh said calmly. After all, if he can't even withstand a wave of revenge, Swain can only be regarded as a hero. Not a hero. The other side. Meteor Volcano. Akainu stood at the front of a warship, attacking the escaping pirates ahead. The magma fell on a pirate and turned into ashes without even a scream. Absolute strength. Report. Fleet Admiral has sent an order. Please return to support the Saboti Islands, a soldier reported to Akainu. What are you doing? I still have pirates I haven't captured yet. Is this the time to issue a transfer order? Akainu held a cigar in his mouth and looked reluctant. What's the reason? As long as the headquarters is not captured by pirates, I will complete this mission first and then go back. I will not accept your fate as a foreigner. Although Akainu has never heard this sentence, he has practiced it. He cannot stop pursuing the concept of justice for a moment. 2 celestial dragons were killed by pirates, the soldier replied nervously. Seeing Akainu angry, he was also very panicked. He was afraid that the next moment he would be poured some lava and drank it. After all, Akainu has a reputation for being strict. Isn't it just killing a scumbag? Do you want me to go back? Disappointment. Then he ordered a U-turn, heading towards the Saboti Islands. But Doflamingo in Dressrosa suddenly received a message from Marine Headquarters. Shichibukai, who are close to the Saboti Islands, gather quickly. Huh. This made Doflamingo a little confused. What's wrong, young master? Baby -5 asked at the side. Wearing a maid outfit, she highlights her figure, and her rosy face accentuates her cuteness. It's okay. Then he continued to sleep. Too far away, not to mention trying to mobilize them just by talking. Doflamingo thought with disdain. Shichibukai in different places also received this message, but like Ming Zhe, they all chose to ignore it. If you want to mobilize them, you must come up with a transfer order. Swain didn't know this at the moment. The Warring States period actually dispatched a headquarters general in Shichibukai to intercept him. However, even if I knew, I wouldn't worry. Advertisement. If I can't beat you, I can't run away. He is soaking his feet in the massage parlor right now. He looked like he was enjoying himself. It's so cool, Swain couldn't help but sigh. The female clerk who was washing his feet also blushed when she heard him moaning like this. I don't know, I thought they were doing something shameful. But at this moment, Swain suddenly thought that he would like to take on a maid. Looking at the young girl in front of me, she has a good face and figure. I have to say that there are many beauties in this world. She even washes her feet with such a stunning beauty. He thought about it and asked tentatively, is the lady a local? Ah, are you asking me? She answered after a while that the reflex arc is really long. Yes, aren't you the only girl around here? No, I was sold here. The girl smiled. That red face seemed incompatible with her chilling tone. Oh, is that so? Swain said. The girl seemed to be expecting something, but when she saw Swain, she stopped talking again. That thought was hidden again. There were 7 or 8 girls that she bought together with her, but now she is the only one left. The rest were either sold as S*X slaves, abandoned, or died of illness. She was the only one left. She was kept here because of her beauty and continued to work for others. Although she really wants to escape from here and see the outside world. What do you know? Swain asked again. This gave her hope again. I can wash clothes, cook, do housework. She began to ramble. Okay. Swain made a stop gesture. That's quite a lot, Swain thought. The girl thought that Swain was irritable, so she quickly stood up and apologized. I'm sorry, sir, I didn't mean it, and please don't tell the boss. The way Choo Choo begged was really pitiful. That was not what I meant. That's what I meant, God knows. Swain had no experience in dealing with girls in his previous life. He stumbles when he talks now. Ah, the girl's little mouth opened slightly, expressing confusion. Would you like to come to my bed? No, I made a mistake. Are you coming to my ship? Swain was also embarrassed. Shame on Dafa. The girl was stunned for a moment, then burst into tears and laughed. Yeah. Okay, from now on you will be my crew member, you will take care of my daily life, and you will be the boss of my ship. Specially purchase items. Swain also showed his majesty as a captain at this moment and said. As for the other, shopkeeper, he is still drinking with others at this moment, and he has no idea that he has been deprived of his money rights. Then he shouted. Boss, I redeemed this girl. How much? Please give me a price. If the female clerk in this foot washing shop is redeemed by someone else, she can stay or leave at the discretion of the boss. After all, the body deed is in his hands, and he can sell it to whomever he wants. This is the law set by the world government. The boss nodded and said, no. He quickly waved his hand to show that he didn't want his money. Roland, hurry up and leave with this guest. Swain also gave the boss an appreciative look, which scared the boss and quickly lowered his head. This boss was present when he welcomed the Tianlong people, so he naturally saw Swain's methods. What's more, if you trade with him, Marine may find out and your head will be moved. So he quickly urged Roland to leave. Life is more important. Thousands of miles away in the Sabaody Islands, Akainu's warship is about to arrive. Advertisement Chapter 38 Battle, the arrival of Akainu. Advertisement. Where are the things I asked you to buy? Swain asked, looking at the drunken Norton. What? Wine. I already drank it on the way. He gave a victory sign. Swain's face turned dark when he heard this. What about your helmet? You don't have enough wine money to mortgage it. Could I be that stupid? Swain didn't even want to hear his next sentence. Give him a violent shock, beat him until he is dizzy. Alas, I'm spinning in circles. Roland, who was standing on Swain's side, secretly covered his mouth and smiled when he saw the two of them fighting. He looked really cute. You're still talking about me, look what you've done. Norton pursed his lips and looked at Roland, and actually started to teach Swain a lesson. Me? He pointed at himself. What are you doing with a woman? Isn't this a drag? Swain punched him on the head again, this time harder, and he directly attached the weapon collar to his hand. A big bump immediately swelled up on Norton's head, and it was still steaming. If you don't ask Roland to come over, will you wash my clothes for me in the future? Swain himself is relatively lazy, and the unwashed clothes have piled up like a hill. Moreover, the sloppy house was almost infested with flies. He always saved up enough and used his own power to cleanse his house all at once. Of course, Norton is not much cleaner than him. If this continues, if you don't get beaten to death by others, you will get sick first. Swain knows that the medical treatment in this world is not very developed. Didn't even the famous One Piece Roger fall to the disease? That's it, I'm sorry, Miss Roland. He stood at attention and said, please help me wash my clothes from now on. Thank you. Get out of here quickly, why should I help you wash it? Swain kicked up and kicked Norton onto the rented mount in front of him. Then Norton felt the soft cushion and began to fall asleep. Swain was a little helpless. Isn't this inappropriate for a pig teammate? Let him go east and he will go west, let him buy things and he will drink. Fortunately, there is a reliable and honest man named Jody, which makes him feel more at ease. This is also the reason why Zhang Chowdi went to coat the Poseidon, not only because he is a shipwright, but more importantly because Norton is too unreliable. It's okay to fight, but when it comes to it, he can run faster than himself. It's like a person's head can be exchanged for wine money, but I'm afraid that I will steal his head. Now there is a new crew member named Roland. Girls are always much more careful than these big guys. He is also more hopeful about his future voyages. Swain called Jody to ask when the coating would be completed. It will take 3 days at the fastest, I received this reply. Then let Roland go find Jody and be his helper, after all. The next 3 days will not be easy to spend, today's tranquility is just the calm before the storm. By then, Marine's powerful enemies will inevitably come to the Sabaody Islands. Who is the one? Swain couldn't help but look forward to it. Since the last battle with Aokiji, his weapon color and knowledge color have greatly improved. This made him more certain that fighting was the fastest way to improve his strength. Just like if Luffy didn't fight with all his strength against Kaido, would he have upgraded his knowledge to the level of predicting the future? If he didn't fight to the death with Kaido, would he have learned Conqueror's Entanglement? Obviously fighting is the way to quickly improve your strength, which is why Swain wants to quickly enter the new world. Because he is not strong enough. If he wants to become the Four Emperors, he can't just rely on his current strength. He also needs to be stronger, strong enough to defeat one of the Four Emperors. Finally, replace it. Swain's hunch was quickly tested. The next morning, advertisement Akainu, here we come. 20 warships appeared neatly on the Sabaody Islands. Catch all the pirates on this island. Those who dare to resist will not be left alive. Akainu ordered the 7 lieutenant generals in front of him and said in a stern tone. These 7 lieutenant generals were the support given to him by the Warring States period. Wow. Many more soldiers came off the ship one after another. They were looking for pirates in various places in order. Where is Swain? Akainu asked the phone bug in his hand. Bulu Bulu. The phone replied. The last appearance was on island number 6. Find it for me quickly. Akainu hung up the phone impatiently. There are a pair of eyes in the darkness observing Akainu's every move. Swain disguised himself and hid in a house. Only when you know yourself and the enemy can you fight without danger. Just then, a soldier whispered something to Akainu. Akainu's expression changed. Then he turned around and walked in the other direction. Swain was wondering what news Akainu would receive. Suddenly, he seemed to have guessed something. Which direction? Swain narrowed his eyes and thought. No. That direction is where Jody's coating is. Swain secretly said something bad. After all, there were many people present when he killed the Tianlong people, so it was inevitable that someone would recognize the Poseidon. When Marine did not arrive, they would naturally not report it due to Swain's power. Now that General Marine has arrived, the situation has been reversed immediately. For the safety of Roland and Jody, he also let Norton pass yesterday. After all, Swain still recognizes Norton's strength. If Akainu passes, I'm afraid the situation I have worked so hard to manage will be ruined. Therefore, he had to stop Akainu here. Blessing from the sea god. Swain came up and unleashed King Explosion. A circle composed of seawater began to rotate on the limbs, with domineering support in the middle. When Akainu and Kuzan competed for the position of Fleet Admiral, they had a duel on Ice and Fire Island. Although they fought for 10 days and 10 nights, they seemed evenly matched. However, a defeat is a defeat. It is enough to prove that Akainu is better than Kuzan. Moreover, Kuzan's character determines that he is not a cold-blooded person, and Swain clearly felt this when he fought against him. I didn't intend to kill the opponent, I just wanted to arrest him live. And Akainu will not hold back your hands. The justice he upholds is absolute. He will not hold back any hands. We won't stop until we kill the opponent. Moreover, the amount of Swain's bounty can also demonstrate his strength. Naturally, the two parties will not test each other as if they don't know each other. Mirror Sea Moon. Suddenly the moon reflected from the sea appeared, with 5 moons arranged in a disc. Zzzzzzz. 5 broken sounds sounded. Then there was a terrifying huge impact, and the ground that the impact passed through was lifted up layer by layer. As a general, he is so keen in seeing and hearing, so he naturally senses the danger behind him. His eyes flashed. Canine-toothed red lotus. I saw that his arms quickly became thicker and larger, and then covered with magma. Then, a giant magma dog composed of magma gradually took shape and attacked Swain at the same time. Where the giant dog passed by, it seemed that even the air could not bear it, and white air came out. The surrounding soldiers and passers-by also fled one after another after sensing the movement here. Those who ran slowly were directly crushed into ashes and bloody water by the high temperature and huge impact of the magma. A great war begins. Advertisement Chapter 39 Difficult. Swain vs Akainu. Advertisement A great war begins. As soon as the moves of both sides touch each other, their momentum becomes distinct. The red and blue airwaves are evenly matched, but the next moment. Kid, you're a little too young. As Akainu roared, the red airwave instantly took over. So strong. Swain felt even stronger pressure than Kuzan. Akainu's moves are full of ruthlessness. Bang. A line of white smoke erupted from the collision, and then a figure was shot away. The result of the first confrontation between the two sides came out. Swain is slightly inferior. His body was like a cannonball, kicking up huge dust on the ground and knocking down 7 or 8 houses before he could stop. He is worthy of being the strongest among the 3 generals. Ouch, it really hurts. Swain couldn't help complaining. Although he was knocked out, he did not suffer any injuries. In this state of Poseidon's blessing, his physical fitness, defense power, and attack power are all improved. It can be said that Swain's defense power is now comparable to that of Lunalia's body. What's more, he has Conqueror's domination wrapped around his body. This is somewhat similar to Kaido's physical body and Luffy's 4th gear, which uses Haki to wrap itself up, thus increasing its defense to an unprecedented level. After all, domineering is above all else. When the smoke cleared, Swain walked out again. How is this possible? Can he block General Akainu's blow? A soldier exclaimed. Nonsense. How could a pirate with a bounty of 1.6 billion be defeated so quickly, said the pirate who appeared nearby. But General Akainu was hunting down over 1 billion pirates in the New World. With this move, you will be seriously injured even if you don't die. Is this pirate okay? The soldier obviously often followed Akainu on missions, so he believed in Akainu so much. Didn't you see that Swain has conquerors on him? That's Liuying Haki. It will naturally increase the defense. Even in the New World, there are not many powerful people who can use Ryusakura Haki. The pirate who was talking to him was also a man who had seen the world. Naturally, the soldier didn't know what domineering was, but why did the man next to him always speak for the pirate? When I turned around and saw that this person dared to appear here without wearing a military uniform, he must be a pirate. Both sides looked at each other. Don't run. The pirate ran away in a flash, but the marine fired several times. On the battlefield, Swain and Akainu were inseparable. Swain took advantage of his speed, got close to Akainu and punched him in the face. Akainu bit down on the cigarette butt in pain. He grabbed Swain with his right hand and replaced it with a magma fist with his left hand. He hit Swain hard in the abdomen. The domineering energy in his abdomen immediately dissipated, and the magma began to burn Swain's skin. He wants to trade injury for injury. Seeing something bad, Swain twisted his body in the opposite direction, raised his left foot and kicked Akainu in the neck. The other one quickly kicked him in the chest. Only then did the two of them separate. What a madman, Swain said as he retreated far away. He touched his abdomen with his hand and found that it was already bloody. Looks quite naughty. Fortunately, I protected it with my domineering force, otherwise I would have been roasted by now. He held back the stinging sensation coming from him. Akainu on the other side also suffered minor injuries. There was a scar near the neck, with a trace of blood coming out. Very dangerous. If you were more domineering, you could seriously hurt him. Unfortunately, Akainu can only make this mistake once. Akainu rolled his eyes and saw his scars and said, "Kid, you succeeded in irritating me." Lava began to gush out of his arms. Violent high-temperature magma dripped onto the ground and directly penetrated into holes. Fighting this mad dog with brute force will only hurt both sides. Swain thought about how to win. He must hit Akainu hard and unexpectedly, but the battle was changing rapidly. How could he be given time to think? Advertisement. Meteor volcano. Akainu fires a magma fireball into the sky, exploding in all directions like a dense cannonball. He wants to block Swain's movement. Only in this way can Swain's strong speed advantage be minimized. Volcanic balls are scattered everywhere. He has no regard for the life and death of others around him. The whales came one after another. Report, General, please. Before he could finish his words, he was so frightened by Akainu's fierce eyes that he could not speak. For justice, you must be prepared to sacrifice, Akainu said. What bullshit justice? Even your companions were killed. Swain dismissed it. Then he moved his palms forward, and the area 100 meters around him was wrapped in seawater to form a semicircle. Those behind him were spared. Akainu's expression changed, as if he was angered by Swain's words. What do you know? This is justice. Akainu jumped toward Swain. Swain covered his fists with Ryusakura Haki and fought Akainu head-on. However, in just a few seconds, the domineering energy in his hand dissipated due to the intense heat. Swain had no choice but to change his moves again and attack with his fists from below, preparing to inflict severe wounds on Akainu's abdomen. His current understanding of Haki can only be heard at the stage of Luji Liuying, and he is not very good at using Liuying and cannot continuously output it to his hands. Otherwise, he wouldn't be controlled by Akainu's magma again and again. Sea entanglement. Akainu's feet were instantly entangled with several black chains. For a moment he felt weak. It's like the feeling of powerlessness when you fall into the sea. Although it was only for a moment, it was enough for Swain to seize this opportunity. A mirror appeared in front of Akainu, and Swain charged up his fist and punched it backwards. Boom! Akainu's body was blown away like a cannonball. Cough, cough, cough. Before his body stopped flying upside down, he began to cough up blood. Successful, Swain said. The fact that he dared to confront Akainu head-on was to capture his conceited mentality. This can be seen from the fact that he dared to stand alone with a Whitebeard in the Summit War 2 years later. This allowed the seawater to wrap around his feet without him noticing. So that for a moment, his whole body was weak. Seizing this gap, Swain's attack could cause huge damage to him. But Swain understood that there was only one chance to cause harm to him with this little trick. Can you still get up? Swain said, looking ahead. The rubble that buried Akainu turned into flowing magma. Puff 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 puff. Hundreds of volcanic balls hit Swain. High big touch kill. Several huge tentacles appeared around Swain, surrounding him. The volcanic ball hit the tentacles, leaving a sizzling sound and steam. Akainu stood up, and lava began to flow from his abdomen. Good news. Injured. Bad news. He seems to be stronger. Swain kept cursing in his mind. Is this red dog so resistant to being beaten? His attack just now can be said to be equivalent to Akainu with the blessing of the fruit, and he can withstand it. If it had been anyone else, the lower half of his body would have been gone. All I can say is that Akainu is very meaty. Think about it, after all, in the original plot, he was almost beaten into soy milk by Whitebeard during the battle, but he was still able to stand up and give Whitebeard a fatal blow. Damn. Swain felt troubled, and on the other side. The battle scenes were also transmitted to the World Conquest Office by projection bugs. Swain? It seems he ate the ocean fruit, a white-haired old man holding a sword said. Advertisement Chapter 40 Mutation Advertisement. Swain? It seems he eats the fruits of the sea, one of the 5 elders, the financial martial god, Izambalen v. Nashao Langsheng said lightly. Well, I'm afraid it has something to do with the wise ape clan from 17 years ago, St. Jagolusha Satan replied. Then he added, then we can't just let him grow up. By the way, let's call Kizaru too. The environmental martial god, Marka's Mosh Saint, suggested. Swain must be captured or killed, the calm words are chilling. Everyone was silent, acquiescing to this proposal. After all, they are afraid of the fruits of the sea. They also hope that the ability user who eats this fruit is a useless waste, not a pirate like Swain who even the celestial dragons dare to kill. Kizaru was returning to the Sea of Marinefant. On the deck of the warship, he was enjoying the daylight. He had just finished working, more specifically on fishing. Brumbulu, his phone is ringing. Hello, may I ask if you have anything to do with me? The 5 elders have given an order so that you do not have to return to the headquarters. Move to the Sabodi Islands to capture Swain. Oh, I just came back, and you really didn't let me rest for a moment, Kizaru complained with a wretched look. This newcomer is really amazing. It seems that I need to let me suppress his arrogance. Swain, who was fighting fiercely with Akainu, didn't know that another general was coming over at this moment. Bang bang bang. 3 more fights. Swain's physical strength was gradually exhausted. Although Akainu on the opposite side suffered a serious injury, his physical strength was still preserved and his breath was not disordered. Mirror Sea Moon. Swain lined up 5 mirrors and punched them all. Big fire. When Puyi fought, the shockwave generated knocked down large swaths of the surrounding houses. Akainu roared, and the magma in his hand filled up a little more. This battle should be over. His power reached its highest at this time. Big kill. Swain resisted the pressure. He was distracted and used his moves to attack Akainu from behind. Tisk tisk tisk. Akainu seemed to have expected it, and elementalized his body in advance to avoid Swain's sneak attack. Don't think of me as a fool, I won't fall for it a second time. Both sides are trying their best. Whoever retreats first will be defeated first. However, the situation began to change next time. Fire Dragon. A voice came from behind Akainu. A man wearing armor and holding a steel knife appeared. Surprisingly, it was Norton. A fire dragon made of flames attacks Akainu. Well done, Swain praised. Akainu is attacked from both sides. This directly made him unable to resist. Swain seizes the opportunity, and he will pour more Haki into his hands, putting pressure on Akainu and knocking him back a few steps. Before he can recover, Seabound first imprisoned the Akainu fruit ability and then used a whip kick. Bang, bang, bang. Several buildings were knocked down in succession, and a large amount of dust was raised on the ground. The scene suddenly fell silent. Marine who was watching the show was also stunned. Although Swain relied on foreign aid to win this match. But being able to fight Akainu like this also shows his strength. Why are you here? Swain asked. Norton explained to him that he hid Roland and Jody when he saw a large marine coming to hunt for pirates. He came alone to support Swain. Now the two of them together are enough to deal with Akainu. Norton held the knife in one hand, and the flames ignited behind him. He was full of fighting spirit at this moment. We can't let you continue to make trouble like this. Akainu stood up again. Advertisement still tough talking. But he does have the capital. He once again gathered the magma to attack Swain and the two. Stop getting entangled with him. Since you have nothing to do, let's leave here first. Swain stopped Akainu to prevent him from going to the Poseidon to kill people. Now that Roland and Jody are hiding, there is no need to hide. How can I tolerate you running away? At this time, Kizaru also rushed over. He was really pushed to death by the 5 elders. Only then did he leave the warship and use his abilities to rush here at full speed. 8-foot beautiful Magatama. Suddenly, there were so many spots of light in the sky that it was difficult to see. No, it's Kizaru. With those familiar moves and sounds, Swain knew that the person coming was Uncle Huang. This one may be more difficult than Akainu. Swain was in a state of confusion at the moment. One Akainu is already his limit, let alone another Kizaru. The world government really thinks highly of me. Swain was speechless. If he had the strength of the 4 emperors today, he would definitely have to compete with these 2 generals, but unfortunately his strength is not enough. Strength. These 2 words stirred in his heart again. Attacks from the 2 generals followed. Sea Shield. However, it only lasted for a moment before being broken. The moves produced by the 2 generals directly bombarded the surrounding area into a waste area. Swain and Norton then narrowly escaped these dense attacks. However, Swain was still hit by Kizaru, and a piece of flesh fell off his calf. He endured the severe pain and continued to dodge. Norton noticed Swain's situation and flew to Kizaru's side at an extremely fast speed. He wants to help Swain entangle Kizaru. Flames began to appear on Norton's hand and spread all the way to the steel knife. Swing out the knife. The head of the yellow ape disappeared. But it's just a fake persona. Young people are really restless. At this time, Kizaru's true form appeared on his left side, his feet shining brightly. Norton felt the crisis and hurriedly covered his head with his hands. Wrong. It's the abdomen, one kick, flash kick. Norden flew out instantly. See this situation, shotgun. Swain pointed at Kizaru. But the next moment, he was entangled by Akainu. It's useless, I'm very fast. He said with a mean look on his face. Obscene, Swain cursed secretly. The battle between us is not over yet. Norden returned to the air at some point and confronted Kizaru. Kizaru, end the battle quickly. Kizaru glanced at Akainu, wondering what he was thinking. Tien Kong Yun's sword. A luminous sword was drawn out of Kizaru's hand. Then they fought with Norden. A prairie fire, Norden slashed at Kizaru. A flaming blade more than 10 meters long struck Kizaru. But he dodged it. Kizaru will not accept a move if he can't, he is very good at catching fish. The flaming blade struck the ground, leaving a crack more than 10 meters long on the ground. It's really scary, all the newcomers are so powerful now. He does more with his mouth than with his hands. Akainu doesn't care about Kizaru's troubled waters. If he can help him share Norden, Swain will be much easier to deal with. After Swain saw the situation turning into this, he began to worry. After all, he and Norden are now stuck. It's hard to run away even if you want to. Advertisement Chapter 41 Rayleigh's Rescue. Advertisement. Hateful. Swain hit him hard, the movements of his hands changing rapidly. Akainu's attacks are too sharp and severe, and it's a killer move every time he strikes. This caused Swain to lose ground even though his condition was unstable. Big fire. Akainu took a virtual step forward, and the magma in his hand spurted out. Swain quickly distanced himself from him. This kind of distance was tantamount to self-inflicted harm in close combat with Akainu. Waves. After Swain and Akainu opened a distance of nearly 10 meters, a flood of seawater blocked the distance from Akainu. As soon as the magma and seawater came into contact, it was like boiling water, and a large amount of water vapor was generated like smoke, shrouding Akainu in it. All that is left is a layer of salt left by evaporating seawater. Explode. Swain shouted. Water vapor is also water, and he can also control it. The water vapor flows rapidly, shooting at Akainu like bullets at extremely high speeds. However, it only caused obstacles to the other party and did no harm. But that's enough. The blue halo on his body has gradually dimmed, and it will take some time to adjust. And on the other side, the battle between Kizaru and Norden was a one-sided situation. 8-foot beautiful Magatama. Kizaru retreated into the air, his gestures already in place. What a beautiful thought. Norden's body rushed towards Kizaru like a cannonball. He knew that Kizaru's move was charged, that is, it was a forward swing of the spell. After knowing this, Norden would not be able to give him a chance to use it. A domineering blade struck Kizaru's head. It's really scary, he still said sarcastically. Then his body turned into particles of light and escaped the blow. Norden looked at Kizaru, who looked relaxed in front of him with heavy eyes. The opponent is also a strong man who is good at speed, and is only faster than him. This turned his advantage directly into a shortcoming, not to mention that Kizaru's strength was much higher than Norden's. There is absolutely no suspense in this battle, but what makes Norden a little strange is that the other party doesn't seem to want to use all his strength at all. Like a cat and mouse, Norden came to this conclusion in his mind. The strength is still too weak, and there is no chance of winning against the general, Norden said darkly. But Kizaru's next action told him that his guess was wrong. He knew very well that the 5 elders were watching the battle through the projection. Although he kept letting things go, he knew that as long as Swain was caught in the end, it would be fine. And he simply entangled Norden, and even if he didn't support Swain, he would have completed the mission. The battle between Swain and Akainu is coming to an end. The moon in the mirror. Swain once again used moves that exceeded his body's load. This time, only 2 could appear in the mirror. It was obvious that his physical strength was about to reach its limit. It's just a fearless struggle, Akainu said in a hoarse voice. He really didn't expect Swain to be able to fight him to such an extent. He even beat him seriously. This is the first pirate who can seriously injure him since he became a general later. However, this is all coming to an end. The terrifying high-temperature magma condensed in his hand, and he punched hard to break the shield in front of him. Swain was caught off guard by Akainu. He didn't expect that the shield would be broken immediately by Akainu. It's too late to distance yourself. I saw Akainu using one of Marine's 6 moves, shaving, and instantly arrived in front of Swain. He grabbed Swain's neck with his right hand and punched him in the chest with his left hand. The terrifying high temperature broke Swain's domineering force in an instant. Ah! Swain screamed. The high temperature has twisted his skin together and is burning his internal organs. After Norden noticed the movement here in the distance, he rushed towards Swain without hesitation. Your opponent is me, take care of yourself first. Kizaru raised his right leg and performed a flash kick. Norden blocked it with his right hand, but the force from his legs kicked him directly into the Alcheman mangrove tree. Swain could no longer resist at this moment, and the pain in his body caused beads of sweat the size of beans to appear on his forehead. Go to hell. Advertisement. Akainu's eyes grew firmer, unable to let Swain grow into his performance potential. It was also decided that Akainu must strangle him in the cradle. Swain seemed to feel the impending death, and he felt extremely unwilling and sad. I haven't completed my agreement with the old man yet, he wanted to fight back again. But now I can't even lift my hands. Consciousness begins to blur. He doesn't want to die. Suddenly, he felt the pain in his body disappear. Are you going to die? Swain seemed a little relieved. Then he knelt on the ground, subconsciously supporting the ground with his hands. Not dead. Swain was extremely confused. Only then did he notice that he was covered by a shadow. Look up. The back of a middle-aged man with white hair wearing a raincoat appeared in front of him. He stood tall and strong. The newcomers of the new generation can't be killed by you like this, he said with some dignity in his words. Why are you here, you B**************. Akainu was a little surprised as to why the man in front of him took action. Rayleigh? Swain asked confused. The only one who can talk to Marine General Feng Qingyundan at this time is Rayleigh, who lives in seclusion in the Sabodi Islands. Oh, so you know me, young man. Rayleigh's voice sounded kind. I saw you on the reward order before. Ha ha ha, so that's it. Rayleigh laughed. The situation is full of twists and turns. Now the arrival of Rayleigh makes Akainu a little difficult to deal with. Although I don't know why Rayleigh saved Swain, as long as he stands here, Akainu will have difficulty capturing Swain today. This is the strong man left over from the previous era. Even though he is old, no one can underestimate him. A great person has arrived. Kizaru also appeared next to Akainu at this moment. Hand him over, Akainu said. Two generals confront Rayleigh. Since I saved this boy, I won't let you catch him again, he said calmly. What about the two generals? As a former deputy of One Piece, what scenes have you not seen? He has also seen it happen when four emperors were opponents at the same time. Especially now. It seems you really want to go against us, Akainu said with dissatisfaction. Marine has observed Rayleigh for many years and knows that Rayleigh has never done anything harmful to the world. He never even went to sea to become a pirate again. Rayleigh did not commit any major deeds after Roger's death in One Piece. He is not like Bullet, who turned the sea upside down after One Piece Roger was executed. Marine launched a buster call in order to capture Bullet, and Sengoku and Garp even mobilized at the same time to capture him and take him to Impel Down prison. Akainu also had concerns at this moment. He really couldn't arrest Rayleigh without Sengoku's order. There is only one reason. Rayleigh's identity is too sensitive. If he were caught, the news would be all over the next day. And will Shanks, a former trainee member of the Roger Pirates, come to the rescue? Four emperors, Marine has to be careful, but on the contrary, if the arrest of Swain was abandoned halfway because of Rayleigh alone today, then Marine will become a joke to the whole world. I guess the headlines will read, Marine Headquarters General was scared off by former One Piece Roger deputy. Such outrageous news. Uncle Rayleigh, thank you for your help, Swain thanked him. He didn't expect Rayleigh to stand up and support him. Especially when you were not familiar with him, but leave the rest of the situation to me. He no longer felt as embarrassed as before. The two looked at each other, and Rayleigh asked Swain with his eyes, can you do it? Swain nodded heavily. He also didn't want to disturb Rayleigh's retirement life and involve him in this battle. While they were facing each other, Swain recovered some of his condition. He was beaten so hard that he didn't have a chance to make a move. Now, he was going to end this fight. Use your last trump card and escape. Advertisement Chapter 42 Escape. Swain's promise, advertisement. Swain adjusted himself. He wants to use his last move, if he can't escape even this way. Even with Rayleigh's help he can't escape. Bah, bah, bah. Swain jumped up and stood 100 meters high in the air. And a circle appeared on top of his head, gradually expanding. Until it reaches the end of the island. Swain has a crazy look in his eyes. Then he shouted loudly, Norton, take Jody and they leave now. Let's meet again in a year. When Norton heard the previous sentence, he thought Swain was going to commit suicide in exchange for his own survival. About to refuse. After he heard the next sentence, he was stunned for a moment. He didn't understand what Swain meant. But as long as Swain is alive. Then he nodded solemnly, fluttered his wings and left here quickly. Akainu and Kizaru also chose to ignore Norton when they saw him leaving. After all, their goal this time is to capture Swain. The reason why Swain said this to Norton was that the injury was too serious. He could feel that many of his internal organs were probably failing. This is the result of burning at high temperatures. He had seriously considered making an appointment for 1 year. If I can escape this time, I will naturally meet again in a year, and even if I can't escape, I can help Norton survive. A sure profit deal. Uncle Rayleigh, see you tomorrow. Then a bow gradually appeared in the huge circle, and a ship was coming out of it. Rayleigh looked at the crazy young man in front of him, smiled kindly, and stepped back. The giant ship behind Swain has been initially revealed. After seeing the two people leaving, he yelled, the tide wave. Then, from under that huge circle, a huge ship made of seawater sailed out. Its huge extent has already covered one of the islands in this archipelago. If this were to fall, I'm afraid the island would be washed to the bottom of the sea. Perusalino. Akainu shouted. Kizaru naturally understood what Akainu meant. As comrades in arms, his relationship with Kizaru was much better than Kuzan's. They usually also drink tea in private and trim the flower arrangements. The two naturally have some tacit understanding. Meteor Volcano. 8-foot beautiful Magatama. The two generals took action at the same time. The moves he fired were actually more powerful than before. After dropping the giant ship, Swain hurriedly left the place. Only two people, Akainu and Kizaru, were left, gradually neutralizing the huge ship made of seawater. Puff! The domineering force that supported the seawater was broken up, and the sea ship was smashed through the middle. The remaining seawater flowing out turned into a flood, directly breaking up half of the island. Countless people were killed in this flood, which was like a natural disaster. Shouts and screams sounded one after another, but most of them are pirates and newly arrived marines. The indigenous residents had already evacuated to other islands when they were fighting. Hateful. Akainu angrily threw the cigar that he had only taken a few puffs to the ground. It's really surprising, that kid escaped, Kizaru said. Snort. If that old guy Rayleigh hadn't appeared, he would have been dealt with long ago. Akainu gritted his teeth in hatred. It's useless to talk more. It's better to figure out how to deal with the aftermath. Kizaru suggested to Akainu, advertisement. And in the highest office of world government, 5 elders watched all the videos of this battle. Saint Satan said slowly. What a pity, with Rayleigh involved, it was unexpected. Raise his reward, said Marcasmus Saint, this is the only way. Everyone was silent, thinking about something, and on the other side. Norton and the others had already left the Saboti Islands on the Poseidon. None of the three of them spoke, and the atmosphere seemed very gloomy. Finally, the older Jody said, don't be sad, we should cheer up. The captain doesn't want to see us like this either. They know. In order to cover their departure, Swain chose to stay and delay for a long time. When it comes to the captain, Jody's mood is also low, but if he wants to estimate, he must suppress the sadness in his heart. He and Swain also spent some time together. Naturally, we know that this captain is truly protecting his crew. A friend in need is a friend indeed, yeah, we should cheer up. Roland on the side was also encouraged. She had only been on Swain's ship for a few days, but she was also very grateful to Swain for taking her out of that devil's cave. So she wouldn't choose to quit just because she just heard that Swain's life or death was uncertain. Norton was left silent. Under the tight armor, you can only see what his eyes are thinking about. He was the first crew member to follow Swain, and no one knew Swain better than him. The relationship between them is no longer that of superiors and subordinates, but that of true friends and companions. He believed that the man would not die like this. Norton's eyes immediately became firm, and he made up his mind. I'm leaving for a while. Why? Roland asked in confusion. The morale that had just been boosted was crushed by Norton's words. Jody also looked at Norton with puzzled eyes. I want to find a way to become stronger. Norton clenched his fists. He only realized that he was weak in the last 2 battles. He couldn't help Swain at all, and he didn't even have the strength to resist a general for him. This caused me to fall into deep self-blame. In fact, Norton's strength is not weak, at least he is definitely among the best among the pirates with the same reward order. Even pirates who are worth hundreds of millions more than him are not necessarily his opponents. Just like Luffy, Kid, the leader of the later worst generation. Although there is also a reward of 300 million, he can't even use the weapon color. It can be seen that Norton is already very strong. It's just that Swain's starting point for going to sea was too high. He was only allowed to go to sea by Woevoli when he could use all 3 colors of Haki. Coupled with his ability to harvest the Logia ocean fruit, this will make his growth rate leave Norton behind. After that, he said goodbye to the 2 of them. You should also work hard to improve yourselves. I hope we won't be a drag on the captain in the future. Then he flew away. The remaining 2 people were left looking at each other. Please send me to Sokafia Kingdom, Roland suddenly said to Jody. I want to learn the secrets of making a big meal, then I will make the most delicious thing for the captain. This way he will be full of strength. Roland put his hands on his chest to cheer himself up. Okay, I'm also going to study the charging cannon I designed myself. The 2 cheered each other up again. 3 days later. Somewhere in the sea, Swain was lying on a small boat with a very painful expression. His injury happened again. Advertisement. Chapter 42 Reactions from Various Places. Advertisement. Cough cough cough. Swain coughed up a lot of blood from his mouth. He lay on the boat gasping for air. After escaping, he used his abilities to speed up. I only slept for 2 hours in 3 days and nights. Fortunately, he got rid of Marine who was chasing after him. The sun is shining brightly. Swain didn't know where he was. I can only lie down and watch the seagulls flying in the sky. After a long time, Swain took out a perfectly raw fish in his hand, the scales on it reflecting light from the sun. Poof! Swain bit off the fish head in one bite, and a fishy smell immediately filled his mouth and nose. He could have used his fruit power to filter out the salt, but after eating fish with a lot of salt, his health became more and more serious. The first day was fine, but then I had to eat raw fish every day, and now my stomach has begun to reject it. I don't know how long these days will last, Swain thought helplessly. He used his power to drink the filtered clean water, and his body felt somewhat comfortable at this moment. And these 3 days, Swain's killing of the Dracos has long been discussed around the world. In Alabasta, Baroque Work Society, here's today's paper. A man with a machete for his arm showed it to the man sitting in the chair in front of him. Huh? Is it this kid again? You are quite courageous? Crocodile sat on the chair and said, yes, and maybe he's not dead yet, Mr. One replied. He actually admired Swain's courage, even he dared to kill the celestial dragon. Alive. I think it has been killed by the world government, he said firmly. Apparently he is more aware of the power of world government than Mr. 1. Amazon, 9 Snake Island. Hancock, read this news. An old woman with white hair and a short stature shouted at the tall and beautiful woman in front of her. Watch your words, please call me your majesty. Hancock scolded him with a cold look on his face. But the white-haired old woman in front of her didn't pay attention to her little arrogance. Instead, he showed her the newspaper. The headline above is, God Killer, Swain, who brutally killed 2 gods. Then he introduced Swain clearly to a series of events such as burning the Draco flag and publicly declaring war. The front page of the newspaper actually reported only Swain's bad behavior. The fewer words in the front page, the more serious the matter. After watching it, Empress Hancock's beautiful eyes looked extremely shocked. The cherry-like mouth is also slightly open, she couldn't calm down for a long time. Now, does anyone finally dare to publicly kill gods? As long as there is a Tianlong in this world, all the things she experienced in her childhood will never be forgotten for a moment. She's been hating it all these years, God Killer, Swain. She looked at this name and realized that she had always hated men. Now, I actually have some admiration for this man I have never met. This stunning beauty, who would fall in love with a man only 2 years later, is gradually warming up her frozen heart. Because he did what no one dared to do. The more Swain kills a celestial dragon, the more comfort she feels in her heart. Hancock stood there in a daze, not even hearing her name being called. Hancock, Hancock, what are you doing? Hancock looked at her with beautiful eyes. Passing my message. The whole island celebrates tonight. Advertisement. Dressrosa. Doflamingo was smiling sadly. Hee. Have the members of the D family finally appeared? Who will win in the end? It's really exciting. And on the grand line, a gangster leader with green hair was yelling at his companions. Look, this is a real man, Swain, even the celestial dragons dared to kill. Whoever blocks it will be killed. Woohoo, so handsome, isn't it? His little friends around him also started howling, and it seemed that they were the ones who were stealing the show. I decided. The green-haired gangster said. Go to sea and become a pirate, follow in the footsteps of Senior Swain. The revolutionary armies around the world were very excited when they received this news. In their view, someone was rising up to resist, which shows that the world government is unpopular. The rebellion becomes more energetic. Swain didn't know yet that because of his changes, some things had deviated from their original trajectory. Brought a new track. A new reward order was also issued. Except for Roland, everyone else on the Poseidon has a reward order. Because Roland was a crew member that Swain only recruited in the Saboti Islands, not even Marine knew that he was Swain's crew member. Among them, the reward orders for Swain and Norton have been further increased. Open black lens bracket God Killer close black lens bracket Swain. Reward. 2 billion berry. Open black lens bracket Tetsuo close black lens bracket Norton. Reward. 450 million berry. Shipmaker, Jody. Reward. 30 million berry. There is also a paragraph below each reward order. Note. Providing information about Swain and his related members will reward you with 3 million berry. There is a world government seal stamped underneath. Swain, who was still reeling from pain and suffering, had no idea how big of a sensation he had caused. He thought it was just killing 2 scum. It's the past 7 days again. Swain was still sailing aimlessly on the sea, like a headless fly wandering around. He really wanted to find a living person, even if it was an isolated island. With this breath, he changed the speed of seawater flow, which was several times faster than that of a warship. He kept driving southeast, relying on his sixth sense that there must be an isolated island or a manned ship there. But his sixth sense was not accurate, and even after driving for a week, he didn't see a single bird feather. Oh my God! Swain shouted with his last breath, then passed out. With such serious injuries on his body, he was able to live 10 more days because of his tenacious vitality. If it were anyone else, such trauma to their internal organs would have paid for it in 2 days. But, maybe it was his last prayer that worked. At night, ships really came. Hey, Captain, look, there's a person there, said a white bear. It has excellent eyesight and can see from far away. Well, I guess he broke away from the fleet, a tall man replied. There were 7 or 8 people on board, then will he die? Send the boat over and take a look, the tall man ordered. When they were almost close, the man asked the white bear to stop the boat and pass by. Then look over it with a sight glass and count his breathing rate. After it was confirmed that he was in a coma, he stretched out his palm and said, Room. Advertisement Chapter 43 Luo Advertisement. Room. Row moved Swain to the ship. Captain, he is so seriously injured, Babo said from the side. Luo looked solemnly at the picked-up person in front of him. I fell into deep thought. Judging from the tatters of his clothes, they must have been burnt. Moreover, Luo continued to explore Swain's body, and the more he looked at it, the more something was wrong. The body was hurt too much. Slaughterhouse. He took out Swain's lungs, heart and spleen. You won't know until you see it, but you will be shocked when you see it. Why is this man still alive? It really puzzled him. Captain, can he be saved? Babo asked curiously. Looking at the man in front of me, he almost looks like a human being. There is help. Luo said after thinking. To be able to be seriously injured like this and still be alive. I'm afraid he is a powerful person. That's not good. Save him and become our crew member. Babo thought innocently. What if it's an enemy? With his strength, it will definitely be easy if he wants to eat the bear's paws. It was rare for Luo to make a joke. Then give it to him? Babo replied. Obviously the reflex arc is obviously a bit long. Huh? When everyone looked at him, they also realized something was wrong. Oh, then don't save him. Babo was startled. Dare you want to eat my bear paw? He quickly retracted his paw behind his back. Seeing this embarrassed look, other crew members around him also laughed at him. The captain is scaring you. Besides, no one eats white bears, they all eat brown bear paws. Babo seemed to be asking Luo. However, Luo ignored him and returned to his original cold look. For all, Captain. Okay, stop making trouble. Carry him to the operating room. After hearing this, people around him also helped carry Swain to the operating room. Bebo, go look for the wind. Dive the boat to 100 meters of water. He arranged it methodically. Just like this, time passed by minute. 2 hours later, Luo walked out of the operating room. Put him on a sling with saline and glucose. Give him some broth by the way. I'm afraid this man hasn't eaten in a few days. He felt a little strange now, not only since he first met Swain, but also after the long operation. He felt as if he had seen Swain somewhere, but it must have happened once. But I just can't remember who it was. This is why Luo wants to save him. Maybe it's an acquaintance, he thought. Luo's itinerary also changed with the appearance of Swain. His original intention was to go to the Water City, then pass through Judiciary Island, and finally enter the New World through the Sabodi Islands. But, Luo looked at Swain who was unconscious. Let's take the journey slowly first. After saying goodbye to Roland and others, Norton also embarked on his journey alone. He changed out of his armor and put on a human skin mask he bought at a high price to hide his true appearance, and then cut off the conspicuous white hair behind him. To prevent anyone from recognizing him, this day, he came to a small town. But there were some conflicts with the gangs in this town. Hey, who are you? How dare you break into our Qing gang? The two leaders asked angrily. Norton didn't answer them. Ouch. You are quite arrogant. Let me see if you will be so arrogant after taking bullets. They are used to running rampant. How can anyone dare to ignore them in this place? Fire several shots, however, it did not cause any harm to Norton, only a few sparks were thrown. The wings behind him were already as hard as iron. But the blood-splattered scene that the two expected did not appear. After seeing Norton safe and sound, he knew he had hit a brick wall. When I saw Norton's eyes, I immediately shuddered. He ran away without even thinking about it. Don't kill us, our gang leader is. However, 2 flaming sword slashes cut the two of them in half. Not even a cry for mercy was uttered. After some people from the Green Gang noticed the movement outside, they also came out one after another and pointed guns at Norton. Since the gun is pointed at me, is that the enemy over there? HMPH, I hope you are still so stubborn. Grandpa, what do you want? I will give you all my money. Advertisement. The leader of the Black Tiger Gang didn't even dare to breathe. Who is the strongest in this place? The gang leader quickly replied, it's a man named Jason Finn. Take me to find him. Although the gang leader was a little strange, he couldn't help it. Norton is now in dire need of opponents. He wants to be strong through fighting. He even has crazier ideas. He wants to challenge Shichibukai one by one. A week later, a ship was sailing against the wind at night. Swain finally opened his eyes, looking at the unfamiliar environment around him. Where is this? Swain asked, covering his head. He has been unconscious for so long that he is now dizzy. Captain. Wake up. Swain's voice also startled the crew member who had just changed his dressing. He quickly shouted and ran outside. Captain, I was rescued by a passing ship? Swain asked doubtfully. Then it looked like the injuries on his body, except for his head, all other parts of his body were wrapped tightly. Looks like a mummy. He moved his arm and found that it only stung slightly. It's nothing serious, it means it's about to recover. This made Swain very happy. He was quite emotional to be lucky enough to survive. I want to say a few words, but my culture is limited. FK. After holding it in for a long time, I still felt so comfortable shouting out. The rest of his life, he finally realized this joy. And the captain who rescued him secretly decided to thank him. Just as he stood up, there was a sound of footsteps outside the house. Then 3 people walked in. One of them was the crew member who had just gone out to report the news. When Swain saw the other 2 people, there was surprise in his eyes. Lo, Babo, Swain said aloud. The other 2 people also looked shocked. Does this person know us? Babo was impatient, so he spoke first. Why do you know us? But Luo was on guard at this time, and the movements in his hands seemed to be ready for battle at any time. Swain's expression made him feel that he was not an acquaintance. He could tell from some details that Swain's expression was one of surprise, not surprise. How could someone look surprised if he was an acquaintance? Now that he knows his name, he can only see it from the reward order. Swain naturally noticed Luo's little movements. His surprise was naturally why he met Luo and this lovely Babo. No, I don't mean any harm, Swain explained. Babo was very confused after hearing this, and turned to look at Luo and then at Swain. It felt like they were playing a charade between each other. Thank you all for your timely help. Swain stood up and bowed in thanks. Luo also put away his vigilance at this time. If the other party behaves like this, it is even less likely that they are enemies. Then he asked, "Who is your excellency? Why are you unconscious at sea?" "My name is Rox D. Swain." As for why he was unconscious at sea, he had a conflict with a good friend and was injured. A conflict with a good friend. Luo felt a little outrageous when he heard Swain's perfunctory explanation. If there is a conflict, you will beat someone to death. Not to mention, or your good friend. Isn't this nonsense? After hearing this, Luo looked at Swain quietly, seemingly unwilling to accept this explanation. But Swain was smiling with a wide smile. Luo, who was about to speak, suddenly choked. It's simply shameless. The Luo he learned was a calm, courageous and resourceful pirate. If he had spoken in a normal way, he would probably lead him to do everything. That is, I met Luffy, the idiot who only cares about fighting. I don't mean to scold Luffy, this is just a joke. Otherwise, if it were Kid and his alliance, they would probably be used as knives. Swain also felt funny when he saw Luo's expression. Then I saw Luo's expression suddenly change. I heard him say in surprise, "Wait, are you Swain?" He finally remembered why he felt familiar with Swain. He had seen Swain on the bounty order, 1.6 billion berries. A pirate who can equal Aokiji. But this is because he has not seen this issue of the newspaper. If he had seen it, he would probably be even more surprised. Advertisement Chapter 44 Let's go, 9 Snakes Island. Advertisement After all, Luo hasn't received the new issue of the newspaper yet. If he knew that he dared to kill the Tianlong people, he would probably be shocked. "Hello?" Seeing Luo Na's surprised expression, Swain said with some uncertainty. "You really saved an amazing person," Luo said slowly. The tone seemed neither humble nor arrogant. You must know that Luo's reward at the moment is not as high as the 200 million he will receive in the Sabodi Islands 2 years later. Swain was actually equivalent to a general in front of him, but the general did not have time to arrest a Luo who was not yet famous. There are not so many twists and turns among pirates. He can kill Luo at any time. This kind of calmness can be said to be something he is born with, or it can be said to be the result of his miserable childhood. But when his companions learned that the man in front of him had a bounty of 1.6 billion belly, they were not this calm. Everyone was so surprised that they backed away to the door. Swain laughed. "Don't be like this, I'm not that scary." Swain secretly praised Luo in his heart. The look in his eyes became more and more pleasing to the eye. The current Poseidon member system lacks such a resourceful person. What's more, Swain still lacks a ship's doctor. In his mind Luo was the most suitable candidate. But now is not the time to talk, not to mention that Luo still has his own crew. If you don't agree to board his ship, there's no way. We can't tie him to the Poseidon, right? Huh. Thinking of this, Swain thinks it is possible. He rubbed his chin with his hand, and his mind was filled with plans of how to tie Luo up. Poor Luo. He hasn't benefited yet, but he is being worried about. "Where are you going?" Swain asked. "I want to go to the water capital first." He paused mid-sentence, as if he was considering whether to say it or not. Go to the water city to visit an old friend. 2 years later, Luo and Luffy met at the age of 25. Swain had calculated before that he went to sea 3 years earlier than Luffy. And Luo Chuhai was 17 years old, which means it took him 8 years to complete the first half of the Grand Route. It only took Luffy 2 years. In less than 5 years, he sat on the throne of the 4 emperors. This made him sigh. Not everyone has the talent of Luffy and Swain, who can complete the first half of the Grand Route in just 2 years. It's even said that Swain's talent is stronger than Luffy's. At this time, Luo went to the water capital earlier than Luffy, and it is estimated that many dangerous enemies appeared along the way, which made their progress and Luffy's journey to the sea meet at the Sabodi Islands. That's just right, I'm going to the water city too. Swain is obviously going to rely on Luo. Master Swain, there is absolutely no need for you. If you want to go somewhere, maybe I can send you there. Luo Zaran saw that Swain did not really want to go to the water capital. Just kidding. Will the pirates with a bounty of 1.6 billion complete the first half of the Grand Route? No one would believe it if I told you. This. Swain was a little embarrassed. Luo really saved him some face and didn't expose him directly. Really? Thank you so much, he said with a very sincere expression. The poor acting skills even made Bei-Bo scratch his head and express his embarrassment. Then the head of the house should rest first. Luo ended the conversation. Swain was left sitting there awkwardly, he swears. This will be the first stain in his life. There is no physical insult, it is all verbal humiliation. But, for his future ship's doctor, tolerate, but on the second day. Luo took the initiative to find Swain. He forgot that he had forgotten to ask Swain where he was going yesterday. 9 Snake Island. Swain answered him. 9 Snake Island. Why did the master return to the windless zone? 9 Snake Island, in the Amazon Lily Zone, is in the windless zone. This made Luo a little embarrassed. It would be fine if he went to other places, but the windless belt was the last place he wanted to go. For him it was a matter of putting the cart before the horse. There are Poseidon species over 100 meters in size growing in the windless zone. If we rashly enter the Grand Route from the windless zone, we probably feed on the Poseidon species in 2 or 3 times. Moreover, the windless zone is a lifeless death zone for wind-driven pirate ships. Advertisement: only Marine and the Nine Snakes pirates led by the Empress can sail here. Therefore, Daughter's Island and Impel Castle can be located in the windless zone, and the purpose is to use the natural defense barrier of the Poseidon type. Otherwise, the famous Daughter country would have long become a paradise for male pirates. Swain naturally noticed Luo's displeasure, and then he said with certainty, "Don't worry, I'll take care of the Poseidons you meet on the road." After hearing his assurance, Luo was still hesitant. Said, "I need to discuss this with the crew." After hearing Luo's rejection, he was not disappointed. "This was a decision made by me in a flash of inspiration. You can pester Luo first." What he didn't expect was that Luo actually gave Swain an answer in the afternoon. "Mr. Swain, we can send you to Nine Snakes Island first. However, you have to make sure nothing goes wrong along the way. Although I believe in Swain's strength, there will be no problem in crossing the windless zone. But I'm afraid that he really doesn't care about the life of the ship in the middle. And there was only one reason for agreeing to him. That means Swain can wipe them out right now, then grab the ship and run away. Instead of rejecting him, it would be better to make good friends with him and let Swain owe them a favor. Maybe it can still work at a critical moment. Pirates also need to be polite. As you can see, during the war above, the Whitebeard pirates were on the front lines rescuing people, and the red-haired ones were guarding their home. This prevented Kaido-sensei's plan to seize territory from succeeding. Then thank you to Razang, Swain said. In the kingdom of Sokafia, the business of a restaurant was in full swing, taking away the business of several neighboring restaurants. Wow, Miss Roland is really talented in cooking, the restaurant owner praised. Yes, she has only learned this skill for 10 days. The young and beautiful landlady was also praising her, which made Roland blush instantly. No, I learned it just by working hard, boss. Another fried noodles. Me too. I came first. The two customers seemed to be about to fight over this fried noodles. And on an isolated island somewhere. Bang, 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 bang. A series of explosions resounded throughout the island. After the sound stopped, a gray-headed man came out. Cough, cough, cough. The data is still a little off. This time the proportion of explosives is wrong. Jody immediately started taking notes with a pen. On the other side, Swain finally reached the windless zone. Although there is a saying that there is no smoke without fire, there is no basis for it here. Although Luo's polar diver can have its own power. However, their journey to Nine Snakes Island this time was still a bit far, so Swain simply changed the flow rate of the seawater to help the boat move. When he first showed his hand, Luo and others were shocked for a while. After all, such a method that can arbitrarily change the flow rate of seawater is tantamount to fantasy. Swain had his own plans for going to Nine Snakes Island, and his ultimate goal was to become stronger. His plan is very simple, that is to ask the Pirate Queen Hancock to help him contact Rayleigh. You know, the last empress of Nine Snakes Island was Sha Li. The reason why she resigned was that she came to the Sabodi Islands because of lovesickness, and the source of the lovesickness was naturally the handsome old man Rayleigh. For the new Empress Hancock, she must still be connected with Charlie. Otherwise, later on, when Blackbeard, who became one of the 4 emperors, attacked Daughter's Island and wanted to steal the queen's fruit power, Rayleigh was able to come to the rescue in time and drive away Blackbeard. Naturally, Sha Li's help is indispensable. He just wants to use this relationship to attract Rayleigh so that he can teach him how to use Conqueror's entanglement. And why didn't he go find Rayleigh himself, even if he didn't receive any news from other places? It can also be guessed that the world government is probably searching for him all over the world at this moment. Once he shows up, there will definitely be another bloody storm. But Swain had a headache thinking about this empress. She is too proud and hates men. But if you fall in love with a man, your IQ will drop directly to 0 and you will evolve into a love brain. What else can we do? Is it possible to make her fall in love with me? Swain sat on the bow of the boat, looking at himself reflected in the sea. After thinking about it, this method seems to work. Advertisement Chapter 45 Peeping Advertisement Windless Zone. On the sea, a 20-meter-long Poseidon was suspended high by the seawater. Swain's palms curled up slightly. The surrounding seawater suddenly acted like a compressor, gradually shrinking in a circular shape. Moo! With a scream, the Poseidon exploded like a ball. Flesh and blood flew everywhere, dyeing the sea surface red after falling. Everyone on the polar diver was numb to this scene. The dangers they encountered along the way were all solved by the handsome young man in front of them. Swain's injury was completely healed, and the bandages on his body were replaced by a casual large vest and large pants. Others regard it as a windless zone for tigers. They feel as if they are traveling and are quite comfortable. Babo, how long will it take to arrive? Swain asked. In just a few days, Swain also established a friendly relationship with Luo's crew. Among them, the one with the best relationship is naturally the navigator Bibo. At this speed, we can arrive in 2 days, Babo replied. Then make it faster. Swain kicked one of the boat's surfboards into the air. He jumped up and landed on the board with his feet. Then, a sudden small wave lifted him up. As Swain's surf speed increased, so did the polar diver's speed. Suddenly accelerating, the inertia of the ship made everyone unsteady. Even Luo almost fell down. Master Swain, can you tell me in advance next time you speed up? Luo complained. Swain laughed instead, pulled down the glasses on his forehead and put them on. Continue to speed up and ride the waves. In less than 2 days, they arrived at their destination, 9 Snake Island. Mr. Swain, let's just say goodbye. Seeing that his goal was achieved, Luo was ready to leave. He really didn't want to have anything to do with this rogue anymore. No, brother. Why don't you go to the island to prepare supplies first? Swain also said anxiously. When Luo heard this weird title, his face was full of black lines. Who are you and your brother? Didn't you see that I want to stay away from you? But I can only complain in my heart. But Swain was right, he didn't have much food left on the ship. 70% of them were eaten by Swain. Small body, big appetite. 9 Snake Island, as the center of the Amazon Lily Kingdom, has beautiful scenery and rich products. Looking from above, you can see a raised attic, which is the palace where the previous empresses lived. On the outer edge of the island, there are many female warriors wearing scantily clad clothes and holding spears or western swords. They look very graceful. They docked the boat on the shore, but there was no patrol here. Be careful when collecting supplies, don't get caught by the soldiers here, Luo ordered the crew behind him. After all, this is the territory of the pirate empress, one of the Shichibukai, so it is inevitable for Luo to be careful. After hearing this, everyone dispersed, leaving only Luo and Swain. Seeing that Swain was motionless, Luo asked, why doesn't the master take action? It was Swain who wanted to come to this place in the first place, but now he has not taken any further action, which makes him very strange. Swain was also thinking about how to ask for Hancock. But before that, he decided to observe it. I have my own arrangements, Swain replied. Then Luo ignored him because he wanted to secretly protect his crew. Advertisement. The two also separated. Swain lurked and walked towards the Empress Palace first. If it flew directly into the air, the scouts underground would naturally notice it and alert the enemy, which would disgust the Empress. Lurking in the past is the best way. There were rustling sounds in the grass, and Swain was almost approaching the palace. Even though his movements were small, he was still noticed. Who? Shouted a female soldier holding a bow and arrow. She shot an arrow into the grass. Base. The arrow shot into the spot where there was movement in the grass just now. The soldier quickly came over to check, but there was just a puddle of water in place. She breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed there were no intruders. Then he left here. Swain, who was hiding, also breathed a sigh of relief. When he was about to be shot, he naturalized his body in advance, so that the soldier did not become suspicious. And Swain also successfully flew from the palace's defensive corner to the highest point of the attic. At a height of nearly 50 meters, this place has been hidden from all sight. Swain tiptoed to open a hole. He lay down and looked inside. I saw Hancock talking to the short old woman. Swain seemed to remember her being called Granny New. She was once a great beauty, but time is like a butcher's knife. Now she has become an old woman with sour plums. Hancock, Sengoku asked Shichibukai from all over the country to go to the headquarters for a meeting. It seems like we are going to arrest the pirate named Swain. After hearing this, Hancock sat on the throne behind him and said with an indifferent expression, how can I be at the mercy of that old man? I won't go. How about you go ahead? After all, you are a Shichibukai now, and you still have to obey Marine's orders in name, Granny Lou advised. She really has nothing to do with Hancock's character. As her housekeeper, I can only give some suggestions. I'm tired, please step back. Hancock refused. Granny New had no choice but to retreat. Swain couldn't collect any useful information after peeking on the roof for a while. When he was about to leave, something happened that shocked him. Hancock was about to start taking a bath. At this moment, he felt like blood spurting out. The small tent on the crotch stood up instantly. I saw Hancock slowly taking off his shirt, revealing his white back, but there was a conspicuous tattoo. Astonishingly, it is the hoof of the sky-soaring dragon. She turned around, with an unparalleled figure. The two big white rabbits on the chest are billowy, with a slender waist and slender legs. Swain stared with wide eyes, or white tiger, circle.operator open angle bracket circle.operator. He was not an innocent little virgin like Luffy. How could he not feel thirsty when seeing such a scene? The stunning beauty stood there, stepping into the rising steam of the hot spring. Like a fairy falling from the sky, it made him think about it, and he couldn't help but feel pity for the fragrance and cherish the jade. After watching the entire undressing process, Swain couldn't help but secretly encourage himself to hold on. I recite the Buddhist meditation mantra in my heart. Chapter 46 Charming Advertisement, Mahabeta Poi. Swain recited the meditation mantra. But the eyes are looking very honestly, looking straight at it, and looking intently. There seemed to be a burst of desire in my heart. It can't be like this, it can't be like this, he muttered. I want to suppress my evil thoughts, but it is difficult for a hero to be a beauty. Unless he was really a fool, how could he withstand such temptation? I can't bear it anymore. Swain really broke through. Facing this stunning woman with a flawless figure. Like a piece of jade, always want to play with it. Who can resist? Hancock, who was taking a bath, was thinking about being dominated by the celestial dragons in his childhood, and couldn't help clenching his fists tightly. Suddenly, 4 iron chains appeared from the hot spring and locked her limbs. It came so suddenly that she didn't notice it at all. Just when she was about to use her power to break these chains, a feeling of powerlessness came from her body. It's like being tied up by a sea tower stone, no matter how hard you try, you can't break free. This is, she exclaimed. Next moment, a man jumped down from the roof. When he saw the person coming, his eyes were full of surprise. It's him. Hancock is seen tied up in chains. He has lost his last sanity. In the end, he still did not understand the true meaning of the Buddhist meditation mantra. No, Hancock shouted, but these words were nothing short of a catalyst for Swain in a violent state. Well, she couldn't help but exclaim. Hancock still had his usual aloofness, thinking of the knowledge that Granny New usually gave her to popularize science. Suddenly, her face flushed with embarrassment. Some time passed. Normally, after taking a bath, a servant would have wiped her body. Because the usual bathing time was set, Granny New's words made her irritated today, and she actually wanted her to participate in hunting down the man he had a slight crush on. So I wanted to take a bath and relax, but she never expected that this man would appear in this way. And with her, he bit his lip. Swain felt relieved and sober at this moment. I'm such a beast, why didn't I control myself? Swain cursed himself in his mind. Sure enough, when a man becomes stronger, he will do things that are difficult to control. He had no choice but to lie on the ground and pretend to be awake. What can be done at this time? I thought to myself. Even if Hancock kills me now, I will admit it. At this time, Hancock stood up and walked to the hot spring pool to wash off the blood on his body. How long are you going to pretend? She said with her back to Swain. Swain scratched his head, at a loss. Does it look good? She suddenly said. It looks good, he said honestly. Hancock is really good looking. I'm asking about the tattoo on my back. Does it look good? She said hoarsely. The voice was already crying. Under her questioning, Swain did not answer. He didn't expect that Hancock's first thing was not to kill him, but to question him about the tattoo on her back. It can be seen that being seen with a tattoo made her collapse even more. Advertisement. This is a stain on her life. It's something that can never be washed away. It's the place that makes her feel the ugliest and the most inferior. Very nice. No matter what you look like, you will always be the most beautiful, Swain comforted. Aren't they just Tianlong people? I will kill them all sooner or later. Hancock turned to look at him. Swain knew a little about Hancock's experience, but she didn't expect it would have such a big shadow on her. Compared with the damage he caused today, she cared more about that tattoo. Hancock put on his clothes. Get out. Don't tell anyone what happened today, or I will kill you to the end of the world, she said with an indifferent expression. It's back to the original state, as if nothing happened today. Swain wanted to say something else, but as soon as he raised his foot, the place where he landed was turned to stone. The warning is obvious. Swain understood that it was useless to explain other things at this time. He thought that he would definitely make Hancock fall in love with him. After all, she is already her own woman. He still has the responsibility for this. Even if his training can be postponed, it doesn't matter. With his talent, he can still become stronger in battle after entering the new world. Looking at Swain's leaving figure, Hancock's eyes were full of complexity, and she felt a little strange. Why don't I hate this man in my heart? It was obvious that he had bullied himself like this. She suddenly remembered what Granny New had said about the reproduction of Nine Snakes Island, and why there were so many people even if there were no men. The previous empresses of Kuja Island were all pirates, and Gloriosa Lily even returned to Kuja Island after the destruction of the Rock's pirates. This phenomenon should not simply be seen as a coincidence, but as a tradition. The powerful female warriors on the island become pirates. In addition to contacting the outside world, they also have a mission, which is to reproduce. Because the location of Nine Snake Island is very remote and cannot be reached by ordinary ships, only pirate ships can take them away. Therefore, the female warriors of Nine Snake Island choose strong men, contact them, and then return to the island after becoming pregnant. And the other side. Babo was arrested. After receiving the news, Luo rushed over to rescue. After hearing the insider's revelations, his face was full of black lines. Turn out to be. The reason why Bebo was caught was because he ate the food prepared for the Empress on Nine Snake Island. The soldiers couldn't catch him once or twice. Simply put the food in a place and prepare to fish out Bebo. However, they were caught in such an obvious trap. Sandasonia, the Empress's younger sister, has green hair and often guards her side. At this time, she turned into a huge snake and was confronting Luo. Sisi. She spit out the snake letter. You can arrest him now, or I will kill him. She made a gesture on Bebo's head with her fangs. Bebo was so frightened that he screamed, but he was still very honest. Captain, leave me alone and leave quickly. What are you talking about? How could I give up on you? Luo said calmly. The movements of your hands must be ready to rescue Bebo at any time. Sundar Sonia was always attentive and noticed Luo's little move. Don't make any small moves, or you will die now, she threatened. Although Luo's face was calm, he was also anxious in his heart. This distance? I'm afraid there is no chance to rescue Bebo. Okay, I surrender, Luo could only say helplessly. Go and cuff them and hand them over to my sister, Sandasonia ordered. Then someone tied up Luo and other crew members. Now I can only pray that Mr. Swain can come to the rescue, he thought in his heart. Swain, who had just left, did not expect that he would see Hancock again soon. Chapter 47 Hancock's Male Concubine? Advertisement? Swain was sitting on the bow of the polar diver, with his legs hanging down and his chin in one hand. Sometimes he beat his feet and chest, sometimes he giggled inexplicably. He beat his legs and chest. It was natural that the plan he had designed was ruined by him. The inexplicable giggle was because he was recalling the beautiful time yesterday. Completely conquered by myself. At this moment, the sound of panicked footsteps brought him back from his thoughts. I saw a limping man coming over with an arrow in his calf. Isn't this Luo's little brother? Swain was confused. The visitor turned his head 3 times with every step, looking very panicked. Swain jumped off the boat. Why are you the only one? Where are the others? The man paused when he heard the voice coming from the front. When he saw it was Swain, he was overjoyed and said, Brother Swain, we were attacked by the 9 Snakes pirates, and the captain and others were captured. Swain spent some time with them in the windless zone. Because of his strong strength, except for Luo, they all like to call Swain, Big Brother. Huh? Swain was confused. Logically speaking, apart from Hancock, the only person on this island who can do anything to Luo is himself. After all, Luo's ability to escape as a result of surgery is unquestionable. Later, the man told Swain what he had seen. He nodded after hearing this and was thinking about it. The man was a little anxious when he saw Swain's appearance. Then he said anxiously, Brother Swain, please quickly think of a way to rescue the captain. Without his urging, Swain would naturally rescue his future ship's doctor. This can improve Swain's status in Luo's heart, although his status was not high to begin with. You go back to the ship to take care of your wounds first, and I'll take care of this matter, Swain ordered. The man nodded gratefully and then went to treat the wound. Things are a bit troublesome. If he wants to rescue Luo, he will probably turn against Hancock again. After thinking about it, there is no way to have the best of both worlds. We just have to take one step at a time, and the other side. Sandasonia also entered the palace to report to Hancock. Sister, we caught a group of pirate intruders. Yeah, just execute them according to the regulations, Hancock said Kaido calmly. After receiving the order, Sandasonia hesitated to speak. Is there anything else? If not, I'm going to rest. See the look on Hancock's face. Sandasonia clearly felt that the sister in front of her had something on her mind, but it was not convenient for her to ask. He had no choice but to add, the captured pirate leader seems to be related to God Killer, Swain. She reminded Hancock, because he knew that being able to hold an impromptu banquet some time ago had a lot to do with this person. Hancock looked uncomfortable when he heard the name. Is it him again? Then imprison them first. Wait for Swain to rescue them. Yes, replied Sundar Sonia. Just as he was about to leave, he realized something. Wrong. Her brain was a little out of whack. What did sister say just now? Waiting for Swain to save them? After Swain comes to rescue them, won't he gain nothing at all? He looked back at Hancock who was having something on his mind. It made her even more confused. My sister never lets others take advantage of her. But she didn't know Hancock and Swain's little secret, and she probably wouldn't think so if she knew. Advertisement. After Sundar Sonia left, someone came forward to report. Your Majesty, a strange man named Swain came to ask for an audience, claiming to be your friend. As for why she said it was strange, it was naturally because she had never seen a man since she was a child. When she saw Swain, he looked different from her. He didn't even have breasts and had short hair. No, Hancock said angrily. I felt awkward in my heart, and I didn't want to kill him. If it were anyone else, he would have been turned into stone, then crushed into powder and thrown into the sea. Completely shattered. But when I thought about seeing him later, I felt panicked and a little embarrassed. This feeling is really strange. He couldn't say it himself, so he flipped his hair helplessly. By the way, he used his slender hands to flick the snake's head next to him. The snake guarding her side looked confused, and outside the palace. Your Majesty said he would not see you, and he will not see you. Swain just smiled helplessly. It seems we can only repeat the same old tricks, Swain thought silently. As long as your thinking does not slip, there are always more solutions than difficulties. Then, he walked around from behind without stopping. After a while, Swain looked at the person in front of him with a big smile on his face. Why are you looking for a concubine? Hancock said with an indifferent look. His words were unforgiving, but the frantic movements of his fingers could not deceive Swain. Well, we can be considered husband and wife, right? As soon as Swain said it, he instantly felt that the temperature in the stadium dropped a lot, and goosebumps appeared on his body. Kiss gun. She touched her lips lightly with her finger, creating a small peach-colored heart-shaped substance, and then shot something like a bullet at Swain. Swain's thoughts moved slightly, and a wall made of seawater appeared in front of him. Wave. Block the bullet. Don't do it, wife. Swain simply stopped pretending. Broken jar, broken jar. Lousy is full of courage now. Hancock's face suddenly turned red after hearing Swain call her that. Captive arrow. She tapped her lips again, and a heart appeared on her hand, and then she pulled the tail of her heart back like a bow. Afterwards, the sky was filled with red flying arrows, leaving Swain with no place to dodge. Sea tornado. A tornado appeared behind Swain. As soon as the two sides' moves touched, the tornado sucked all the arrows together and then disappeared. The sound of fighting inside the venue attracted the guards from outside. Seeing enemies breaking in, they all raised their weapons. Swain had forgotten that he was a human being at this moment. He took a big step and pressed forward with both hands. Don't get me wrong, I'm one of our own, I am your majesty's new male concubine. Everyone outside the venue. Underscore backquote. Underscore backquote. When did our majesty get the male concubine? Big Melon. Hancock's two younger sisters, Sunda Sonia and Boya Marie, also exchanged confused looks. Even Granny Nu, who has always been honest, looked at Hancock with a look like, I know, I understand. Then he spoke. Hancock, I know you have reached this age, but you still have to think about your responsibilities as a king. Don't miss state affairs because of this, after all, this is how the last king left. She expressed great understanding. Swain looked at the old woman and gave her a thumbs up. This assist is awesome. Chapter 48. Loose, Hancock's acceptance. Advertisement. Swain looked at the old woman with admiration in his eyes. Very good, although this matter was just a mistake, if she interfered with it like this, it might still succeed. Hancock lowered her head so that no one could see her face. Her face was so red that she could bleed. Damn it. This B************. She kept scolding Swain in her heart. No matter how powerful, coquettish, and domineering the Empress is, she still wants to find a crack in the ground and crawl into it at this moment. If the others were okay, she would just kill everyone who knew about it. But these are her relatives and citizens, how could it be possible? Sonia, Mary, catch this scoundrel, Hancock yelled. It would be difficult to understand the hatred in Swain's heart without ripping out Swain's skin and bones. After hearing Hancock's order, Sonia and Mary took action without hesitation. The two men, one green and one yellow, transformed into animals and turned into giant snakes, forcing him out of the palace. Swain took his time and dodged their attacks. When the two saw Swain, they hid and turned into half man and half snake, and punched at the same time. Boom! Swain used his palms and fists, and when the weapons touched together, they roared together. Those two sisters were no match for Swain. They were defeated after just one round. Everyone who didn't know Swain exclaimed when they saw this result. They, the two strongest female warriors in the kingdom, were defeated like this? Swain grinned. Granny Nu, who was in the distance, saw Swain's smile and felt vaguely familiar. It looked so much like the pirate he had seen when he was young. I'm sorry, sister. We're embarrassed, said Sonia and Mary. The difference in strength is too big. Hancock comforted, don't blame yourself. She was going to teach Swain a lesson with her own hands. The big snake under her feet held her up and walked towards Swain. Don't you want to save that pirate? She said coldly and arrogantly, I'll give you a chance. If you can defeat me, they can survive. Swain saw that the Empress was stunningly beautiful even when she was angry, so how could he possibly kill her? What's more, she is her own skin couple, but the other party doesn't think so. The Empress is wearing a purple cheongsam, with 3,000 hair draped behind her shoulders. Her slender legs look very charming against the backdrop of this cheongsam. She was extremely fast and kicked her right leg towards Swain. He even used Haki. Outsiders are easily confused by her appearance, and often forget that she is a strong person with 3 colors of domineering energy. The reward order is as high as 1.659 billion berries. Swain's expression was solemn, and he almost forgot that the strength of the Empress should not be underestimated. He was seen standing with his legs astride, holding his right hand to his chest. Actually want to meet this blow. Ding! The two sides fought, and the weapons collided and made a sound. Hancock snorted, turned around, and kicked him again. Swain was kicked out directly this time. Why don't you fight back? Hancock asked coldly. How could I do something to my own wife? Swain wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with his hand. He didn't even bother to defend himself just now. Let Hancock vent his anger first, it's not him anyway. HMPH, I won't hold back, big fragrant feet. She took long strides, then turned sideways, raised her right leg, and kicked Swain in the ribs. Click. This domineering kick directly dislocated his ribs. It hurts. Advertisement. Swain shouted inwardly, this woman is so cruel. And Hancock didn't expect that Swain really didn't have any precautions. Swain fell to the ground, his throat was slightly sweet, and he spit out a mouthful of blood. You, Hancock said angrily when he saw Swain vomiting blood. She just wanted to teach him a lesson, but she didn't expect that this man was really not guarded against her at all. Swain stood up again with a grin. The bright red mouth corners were raised, and the word, wife, was said on the lips. This makes Hancock angry. Even though he was injured, his mouth was still tough. Kiss gun. She tapped her lips and then fired a bullet, hitting his arm, causing blood to flow freely. This is because Swain has a strong physique. Without any defense, he just shed some blood. If it were an ordinary person, I'm afraid his arm would be broken directly. Why don't you fight back? Hancock got close and hit him in the face. Punch after punch, but it didn't have the same energy as before. Why? When she saw the appearance of the man in front of her, she began to feel unbearable. The dust in my heart that has been sealed for many years is gradually loosening. I said I would protect you and kill all the Tianlong people who bully you, Swain said with difficulty while lying on the ground. Never mind whether Swain actually said this, but his words were very lethal to Hancock at this time. After all, nightmares from childhood would often wake me up after escaping. Thinking of the helplessness she felt at that time, she, as a little girl, longed for the protection of a man. But, from then until now, she has been facing it alone. Now the man she had dreamed of since childhood was speaking in front of her, saying he wanted to protect her. At this moment, the inner defenses were completely let go. She sat on the ground and held her legs with her hands. There was also mist in his eyes. He looks pitiful and lovable. Sonia and Mary, who were retreating far away, were about to cry when they saw Hancock. He also came over with an angry look. She didn't care whether Swain fought back or not. If she made her sister cry, they would vent their anger on Hancock. Swain felt relieved after seeing Hancock finally accept him. She was lying on the ground, smelling the body fragrance from her body. My mind has already begun to wander. The two sisters who came over said nothing and just punched and kicked Swain. He was already bleeding profusely and hadn't even taken a few breaths. After being dealt such a heavy blow, he turned around and pretended to have fainted. Hancock didn't even have a chance to stop it. What's wrong with you? She shook Swain. The two big white legs on her chest also began to sway. Swain opened his eyes and peeked through a crack. So big. No, it's so white. Send him to the doctor quickly. Hancock looks like a king on the outside, but he's still a girl on the inside. There is no way Swain is as smart as Swain. After seeing him unconscious, he became nervous, and he would never really beat him to death himself. I come. Mary was a little worried when she saw her sister, so she took Swain directly from Hancock. She is a very fat woman. She has never been in contact with men for many years and has never known what it means to be a lady. He threw Swain onto his back with his hands. Click. Swain suffered another dislocated rib. Grass, a plant. Swain cursed these two people endlessly in his heart. Chapter 49 Swain's invitation. Advertisement. Captain, brother, won't you forget us? Babo asked. No, Swain is not that kind of person. Luo now began to believe Swain. In the dark cell, the two were discussing these things. Not long after, there was a glimmer of light. Two female jailers started to discuss it. Did you hear that? Today, a man named Swain dared to duel with His Majesty? Yes, I heard it was just to save the captured pirate. Fortunately, Your Majesty is a hero among women, so he beat him to pieces. Bibo, who was squatting in the cell, had just heard that his good brother had come to save him, and he was about to be happy. But after hearing the second half of the sentence, my heart suddenly became cold. Isn't this big brother okay too? Luo also had doubts. According to his estimate of Swain's strength, there should be no enemy of him on the entire island. Could it be that other powerful people intervened? But from what the two women said just now, it seems that no one else was involved. Then there is only one answer. Swain gave up. Luo analyzed it carefully, trying to peel off this doubt layer by layer. But he was stuck on the news that Swain was defeated in the end, and he really couldn't figure out why. But what happened next made him even more puzzled. I saw another person coming in a hurry. The message came. Your Majesty has an order to release the pirates caught before. Luo and others were released. Then he was led by the messenger. Everyone looked at Luo, waiting for his next move. Let's go and say goodbye to Mr. Swain. Although I don't understand why he was released inexplicably, it must be related to Swain. Swain, who was in the palace, was lying on the bed in Hancock's boudoir. Don't burn it. She carefully fed Swain the porridge. Thank you, Hancock. Swain said. After the relationship became ambiguous, Swain became normal. After all, calling her wife at that time was just a way of talking and saying something. Now I'm lying drunk on the beauty's knees. He was still feeding himself porridge to heal his injuries. This makes him think that he should treat his woman normally. Hancock smiled when he heard her thanks. My heart felt like I had eaten honey. It's like a deer hitting his chest. It seemed that it was his first time to serve someone, and he was worried that Swain wouldn't be full. Before Swain could recover, the next bite came, which made Swain's hot tongue numb. Fortunately, someone came to his rescue the next moment. Hancock, someone outside wants to see Swain. Granny New interrupted their sweetness at an inappropriate time. Hancock suddenly turned his head. His face was sunny one moment, but the next moment he looked at Granny New with dark clouds. Granny New was shocked by her change of expression. Am I provoking her? Sure enough, women in love are the scariest. Granny New complained secretly in her heart. Okay, I get it. Then he turned to look at Swain. Are you going to see them? She asked warmly. Just wait. After looking at each other for a few seconds, Hancock lowered his head shyly. So charming. He has been looking at me just now. Could he have fallen in love with me? Then when can we get married? What's the name of the first baby? She held her chin with both hands as she thought, twisting her head from time to time. Swain looked at each other just now, wanting her to contact Charlie and help invite Rayleigh over. Seeing Hancock's appearance, he guessed that he had fallen into self-attack. Advertisement Swain touched Hancock's head and thought she was quite cute like this. But it was okay not to touch her. Steam began to come out of her head. Ah, what's going on? Swain was a little confused. Seeing that her body was still shaking slightly, I was about to ask her if she had a fever. After seeing that the roots of her ears were already red, I understood. I dare to love my sister's love brain. Although he was happy that this stunning empress fell in love with him, he still did not forget the purpose of coming here. He said seriously, do you still have contact with Xia Li? After Hancock heard Swain ask her, he thought for a moment and replied, there is still contact. Although I don't understand why Si Wei knew about Xia Li. But for Swain's question, he still answered truthfully. That's great. Swain was delighted. He was afraid that with Hancock's character, he would have no contact with the former Empress Charlie. Then can you contact her and ask Uncle Rayleigh to come over? Let that old man Rayleigh. Apparently Rayleigh has been to Nine Snakes Island many times, and is probably going back to her parents' home with Sha Li. Of course, she agreed. The person in front of you is your sweetheart. His requests will naturally be fully met. Even if Rayleigh doesn't want to come, she will invite her to come. After they discussed for a while, Hancock left to contact Charlie. Swain also went to see Luo, who was waiting for him. On the way, no one stopped Swain anymore. Everyone knew that this was a good friend of the Empress. The two had just met. Luo Bian took the lead and said, "Thank you, Master, for saving us." His expression was still serious. "It's time for me to leave. This time I say goodbye to you. The mission of sending Swain has been completed, now. He is also starting a new journey. Would you like to listen to what I have to say?" Swain said. "Please speak." After all, Swain was considered his senior. "What do you think of my strength?" "Very strong," Luo said. "After all, the reward amount is placed there. Having been with Swain for a while, I still have some idea of how powerful he is." "Strong? Then I would have been so seriously injured? If I hadn't met you, I might have become a Poseidon type of shit." Swain's words sounded ugly, but they were true. Then why was the head of the family so seriously injured? Akainu and Kizaru. Then, he told him about the battle in the Sabodi Islands. Because Luo hasn't seen the recent newspapers yet. So when he heard the news, he seemed extremely shocked. Swain was able to escape from the pursuit of the two generals. "If you continue walking with your strength, there will be great danger," Swain said. "But this does not scare a pirate who longs for freedom." He then Kaido. "So what?" There was already some anger in his voice. Swain knew that he had misunderstood what he meant. Then he explained. "I didn't mean to look down on you. Now, I need to practice on this island for a year. I made an agreement with my companions to set off for the New World in 1 year." Luo listened carefully, knowing that Swain would not tell him these things for no reason. Really, his purpose was revealed in the next sentence. "I still lack a ship's doctor on the ship. I want to invite you to be my crew," Swain said in a sincere tone of invitation. But Luo simply said, "Kaido. I refuse." Swain could naturally guess that Luo would refuse the first time. But he is confident that he can convince Luo. "Even if you are stronger, what about your companions?" Chapter 50 Luo joins. Advertisement. "Have you considered your companions?" Swain asked. "Can I keep up with you after entering the New World?" Swain also had a deep understanding of this. His strength improved so fast that even the stronger Norton could not keep up, so he took a year to buffer. And the fact is, in the original plot, the Battle of Onigashima was victorious. When Luo passed by Victory Island, he was caught off guard by Blackbeard, who had ambushed here in advance. After a fierce battle, Luo was seriously injured. Fortunately, Babo had the secret medicine given by Chopper, which strengthened himself into the Moonlight Lion form and rescued Luo. All other members were captured by Blackbeard, but with Blackbeard's ruthless heart, it is estimated that very few will survive. Compared with the Straw Hats, Luffy's two lieutenants Zoro and Sanji also have their own strength. Therefore, in the face of any powerful opponent, Luffy and the others can have enough confidence to deal with them. But Luo is different. His single lead ability is too strong, just like a highly developed jungler. Naturally, his companions will not have any fatal flaws in the early stage, but they will naturally be exposed in the later stage. Swain's words seem to speak to Luo's heart. Although he believes that his members will gradually grow up, what about New World? Even someone as powerful as Swain is afraid of this. Seeing that his words were effective, Swain simply interrupted his last concern. "You are just joining me temporarily, there is no need to disband your membership. Incorporate your heart pirates under my banner." Luo seemed to understand. "From what you say, all of us will join you in the pirate group." "Yes, but two independent pirate groups do not command each other. It can be simply understood as corporate cooperation," Swain explained patiently. Luo fell into deep thought. Swain was indeed right. There were too many factors that were difficult to grasp in this windy and treacherous sea. What's more, after joining Swain, you can rely on his strength to gradually develop your own crew. And he also helped Swain, which can be said to be a situation beneficial to both parties. After a while, Luo gave the answer. "Okay, I'll join you." With this, the Heart Pirates merge into the Swain Pirates. Swain was overjoyed when he heard the result. "The joy on my face cannot be concealed." What he fears most is not powerful enemies, but sudden illnesses. Just like One Piece Roger, can Marine really catch him? Cannot. His strength is at its peak, and he chose to surrender partly because he wanted to start the era of great pirates, and partly because he knew that he would not live long. How could he not like the addition of a ship's doctor who possesses the ability to perform surgery? This is equivalent to an extra life. Let's stay on Nine Snakes Island now and wait a year before setting off. In the meantime, just follow Rayleigh and learn how to use Haki with me. Wait, Rayleigh, is it, Pluton, Rayleigh? Of the names that could come out of Swain's mouth, he could only think of that one. "Yes, that's him," Swain replied. After receiving the affirmation, he was also shocked. After all, he is a strong man from the old era and the vice-captain of One Piece. Anyone who is a pirate can understand the weight that this name brings. And on Norton's side, Norton has never met a master who can fight. And he also began to choose the 7 warlords of the sea as his opponents. Off Kraikon Island, a speedboat sailed from not far away. Standing on top is naturally Norton from the Logia tribe. The purpose of his trip was to challenge the only swordsman among the 7 warlords of the sea. Joe Raquel Mahawk. This is also the Shichibukai who is relatively close to him and has the most powerful strength. When we are about to enter the island, he flapped his wings behind him and flew into the air, looking at the isolated island. And in a castle on an isolated island, Hawkeye is resting. Norton suddenly opened his eyes when he stepped onto the island. Enemy? It's really rare. Subsequently, advertisement. There were many baboons carrying weapons on the mountains in the distance, running down the mountain in groups. Norton naturally noticed these movements. His eyes narrowed slightly and he fluttered his wings again. Finally he saw the baboons converging in his direction. So much, but he didn't take it to heart. After all, except for the weapons on his body, he was no different from other animals. They are all just lambs to be slaughtered, but he soon noticed a big difference. He swung his sword and fought with one of them, the 2 weapons colliding together. Ding! Makes a crisp sound. Huh? You can actually take a move from me? He felt very surprised. But what surprised him even more was that this baboon could actually use armed colors. After realizing this, he no longer underestimated the enemy. This place was full of weirdness. Fire dragon. Flames jumped behind him, and then a fire dragon began to circle 10 meters away from him. Norton moved his fingers, and the fire dragon came to life and began to rush towards the baboons gathered around it. Wherever he passed, there was suddenly a tragic cry. Hawkeye in the castle watched Norton's battle with a projection bug. Energy person? No, it doesn't seem to be the case. It's quite interesting. Then he stood up and picked up his supreme black knife. The moment I picked it up, it made a majestic sound of breaking through the air, as if I felt the owner's fighting spirit. It didn't take long for Norton to defeat all the baboons around him. Then, Eagle Eye gradually came over from a distance. Norton suddenly felt a powerful aura coming from the man who was gradually walking towards him. He shook off the blood on the knife and held it straight. His eyes were also full of fighting spirit. He wouldn't know who the terrifying man in front of him was, but even so, he still had no fear. Nothing can be broken or established. He took half a step back, and then rushed towards the opponent like a shooting star. Young man of courage. As soon as the 2 sides fought, a powerful wave of energy erupted. Ding! Ding! Ding ding! Norton slashed several times in succession, but not even sparks flew. But the opponent has been defending and not attacking. So strong. Norton thought to himself. He opened a distance of several hundred meters and flew high into the sky. The flames behind him grew brighter. Fire King. The flames behind him exploded to their maximum intensity at this moment, and then condensed into a sword-wielding king composed of flames. Hawkeye glanced up, then slowly raised the black knife and swung it out. The solid slash collided with the king's sword. Norton now felt the power of this blow, which was greater than the pressure he felt when facing the general. There was still a hint of domineering in the slash, destroying his body. He roared, using his hands to resist with all his strength. Rub 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 rub. The airwaves spread around. Oh? Is it blocked? Hawkeye looked surprised. Subsequently, I saw him swinging his sword again. This blow was faster, stronger and more solid than before. Norton just quickly used the knife to protect his chest, but after just a moment of pause, the knife with his domineering handle broke. His eyes were horrified, and his head turned back in horror. The mask on his face was destroyed, revealing his unique skin color. Eagle Eye saw his face and the white hair that had just grown out. It's really rare, a boy from the Lunaria tribe. When Norton heard the other party reveal his identity, he looked at him with fear. Let's go, Hawkeye said as he put away the black knife. I will come again tomorrow. He looked deeply at the man in front of him. Whatever. Then he turned and left. After all, the Lunalia tribe is close to extinction, and this race that once ruled the Red Earth continent has become so lonely. If he were to be killed again, wouldn't it mean that the entire clan would be exterminated? Hawkeye thought to himself. Chapter 51 The practice begins. Advertisement the second day. Norton challenged again. Hawkeye also slashed, this time directly cutting off a piece of flesh on his arm. Still letting Norton leave. I will come again tomorrow. The third day, it was still a slash, and Norton was defeated. This time, his wings were chopped off. You lack perception. Hawkeye looked at Norton and said. Norton thought thoughtfully after hearing this, then turned around and left. In this way, Norton began to challenge Hawkeye day after day without stopping. There are still 11 months left before they meet. Just when Norton and Hawkeye challenge. Rayleigh was also invited by Hancock to Nine Snake Island. He exposed his breasts, tied his shirt to his body, and walked out of the water. There are several Poseidon-like corpses nearby. Did you swim here? Luo looked shocked. Luo K has experienced how far it takes to go from the Grand Line to the windless zone, and how dangerous it is. If you are not careful, the whole ship may be sunk. But the person in front of me just swam over. Hancock and Swain stood walking together. Swain had grown a lot taller this year, and now they looked like a golden couple together. Hello. Rayleigh greeted warmly. Okay. How many days have it been? Hancock asked with a look of disgust. You came here empty-handed again this time? Rayleigh smiled coquettishly after hearing this, and pointed at the Poseidons lying on the ground. This is his gift. Already penniless, he still had to go to Hancock's place to beg for a drink every time. You bad old man, is this what you brought here? Hancock put one hand on his hip and pointed at Rayleigh. It even started to threaten. She looks like a female devil. Although he knew Hancock was domineering, he couldn't help but be stunned when he saw that he was like this when facing Rayleigh. Fortunately, she is my brother's partner, and he is still a big cotton-padded jacket who is considerate of his partner. Luo on the side was also sweating coldly. This is the deputy of One Piece. Sister, are you so awesome? Hancock, stop making trouble, Swain said. After hearing Swain's voice, she immediately became ladylike. Only then did she stop lecturing Rayleigh, and stood obediently beside Swain, with her hands behind her back, looking very aggrieved. Rayleigh also gave Swain a kind look. He could understand the relationship between the two people at a glance. I also admire Swain for being able to subdue this devil who usually gets scolded for a long time even if he asks for a drink. Then they started the topic of this meeting. Uncle Rayleigh, I invited you here because you want to learn domineering, Swain said respectfully. Hancock can do whatever he wants, but Swain cannot neglect this old era figure. Haha, that's easy to say. I'm afraid my old bones can only use this little residual energy. Rayleigh replied with a smile. After all, if the other party shows enough respect, he will naturally teach with all his strength. Who is this? Rayleigh asked. My name is Trafalgar Law. Law introduced himself. Okay, let's start tomorrow, Rayleigh suggested. Naturally, the two of them had no objections. They were looking forward to his arrival, so the earlier the better, the better. Hancock was about to step forward to speak, but Swain grabbed her hand. She moaned. His body seemed to be electrocuted, and his face was as red as a grilled shrimp. Just listen to Uncle Rayleigh, Swain whispered into his ear. This made Hancock even more unable to resist, and he almost fainted. He replied with a tight mouth, yeah, advertisement. The sound is as thin as a mosquito, it looks very cute. Then Rayleigh walked away happily, preparing to go to the wine cellar on the island to have a drink. Luo also left to prepare some daily necessities. Come to my room tonight and let me tell you something, Swain said to Hancock softly. Since he was about to start a year-long special training, he naturally had to explain some things to her. He then catches up to Rayleigh. Soon. Then the sun sets over the western mountains and the moon shines brightly at Tianmen. At night under the moonlight, only insects chirped. Swain was sitting in the room thinking about some things about entering the new world. There were several knocks on the door. Can I come in? She said in a nervous voice. Sure. Swain's voice just fell. I saw a figure walking in. Different from her previous attire, she was wearing a purple suspender skirt today. The skirt just covered her knees, and the white silk on her calves made her appear thin and straight. There is a bow tied around the waist, which highlights the small waist without any fat. There is a touch of rosiness on the delicate cheeks, which makes people daydream. So beautiful. Swain's eyes suddenly lit up. Hancock usually wears a cheongsam and looks like a domineering royal sister. The way she is dressed now, she feels like Xiao Jiabiu, very ladylike. After hearing Swain's praise, she buried her head even lower. Come, sit here. Swain patted the seat next to him with his hand, motioning for her to sit over. Hancock's brain had shut down since he heard the compliment. Move carefully and sit next to him. Swain smelled the body fragrance on her body and had already forgotten everything he wanted to explain. White stockings and thin legs, even if a monk comes here, he has to break his precepts. My hands also started to become dishonest. Hancock felt a hand touching her body, but she didn't resist. She was in a state of confusion, as if there was an electric current stimulating her. It's time for us to rest, Swain said with a smirk. Late at night. In addition to the chirping of insects, there are also a few faint moaning sounds here. The next morning, except for Swain and Hancock, everyone else gathered on the bund. What is the master doing? Luo couldn't help but wonder. I usually do things neatly, but why am I late today? Rayleigh leaned against a rock, drinking a small drink, and laughed after hearing Luo's question. Didn't have to wait long. They came over, keeping everyone waiting. A pair of beauties and talents came over, but if you pay close attention, you can see a touch of black on Naswine's eye circles. It was obvious that he didn't have a good rest yesterday. Several soldiers appeared behind him, transporting huge packages. What's in this? Luo asked curiously. These are the daily necessities that I prepared for Swain, as well as some food. Hey, Hancock, this is not okay. Rayleigh refused. He has to get everything by himself, otherwise how will he be trained? What are you talking about? Why do you always go against me? Hancock asked with an unhappy look on his face. It's for his own good, Rayleigh explained. Then the two began to argue. Swain was also helpless. He had already told Hancock to prepare less things, but she insisted that this was the minimum. I didn't see the package in Luo's hand, it was less than a dime. He had no choice but to act as peacemaker and get them to stop. And his trial has officially begun. Chapter 52 October goes in a hurry. Advertisement. Knowing something but not knowing why is often a wrong approach. This is where the practice of domineering lies. You only know how to use it, but don't know how to use it as you wish. This will make your practice stagnant. Rayleigh was talking eloquently in an open space. Behind him, two students, Swain and Luo, were listening carefully. After he finished speaking, he showed it to the two of them. I saw his breath was calm and his fingers moved forward. A thick tree not far away was pierced, revealing Ruan Ren's wounds. This is an expression of the armed color, Rayleigh said slowly. Armed colors are not as rare as conquerors, and are naturally developed by many masters to have more functions. It has functions such as hardening, winding, external release, and internal destruction. Swain was thoughtful after hearing this, and seemed to understand a little of what Rayleigh meant. Under the guidance of Warri, he had a preconceived idea that the essence of armed color was defense. In this way, we can only learn the form of armed color, but not its spirit. The best defense is to take the initiative to attack. The essence of armed color is to attack, to kill. The second function is defense, which is used to attach to weapons or skin, but why should it be attached? The essence is to cause damage to the opponent. Thinking of this, Swain had an elusive feeling, seeming to be wandering between enlightenment and confusion. Rayleigh laughed loudly after seeing the expressions of the two of them. I didn't have a teacher to teach me back then. Fighting is the fastest way to learn. You don't understand it now, but you only need to remember the theory. The real thing has to be experienced in battle. There is nothing wrong with what you say. In fact, Swain and Luo don't even know the theory, or have only a partial understanding of it. Rayleigh didn't say much and directly asked Swain to start training. Fight with me and you will become more enlightened. Swain didn't hesitate after hearing this, and his body immediately teleported to his right side. His legs were covered with military colors and he kicked sideways. Rayleigh just pushed lightly with the palm of his hand and put his weapon outward, blocking Swain's powerful blow. Swain felt that he had been kicked against a thick iron plate, and it was impossible to cause further damage. Then Rayleigh used a little force and knocked him away. His body stopped after hitting several big trees, and he also felt a force moving through his body, but it did not damage his internal organs. This is the internal sabotage of armed color, Swain thought secretly. Luo watched the battle carefully from the sidelines. His foundation was much worse than Swain's. Seeing the scene of their fight, he naturally wanted to learn from it. Come again. Rayleigh urged. The corners of Swain's mouth raised slightly, and he could feel that Rayleigh's teaching method suited him very well. Norton sighed. This is already the 10th day of challenging Haki. Torchbearer. Infinite flames suddenly erupted in his right hand, and began to condense into a big hand. The flames were so solid that they seemed to drip out of magma, and they were grabbed at the eagle eye with terrifying heat. One knife. Unbiased, Haki tore Norton's big hand apart directly. Another extremely fast knife. Norton didn't panic, and his sense of sight was stronger than 10 days ago. His body quickly hid to the right, leaving only a scratch and blood dripping out. His life is threatened every day, and if he dodges a little late, he will be killed. The color of knowledge has become stronger. Norton was secretly happy. This slash would have probably cut off half of his head 10 days ago, but now it only left a scar on his face. It still doesn't work. Hawkeye still said the same thing. It seemed to be contempt, but also seemed to be a reminder, and then turned around and walked into the castle. Come back tomorrow, Norton said, clenching his fists. He already felt that he was slowly making progress, even if it was only a small step. But quantitative changes are enough to cause qualitative changes. He believes that he will become Swain's most powerful support. Kingdom of Sokafia. Roland took off his apron and wiped the sweat from his forehead. Advertisement. It's such a busy day. She started cooking when she got up in the morning and didn't stop until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I wonder how the captain and the others are doing, and Jing sat aside and thought. There are still 10 months left. She has to work harder to learn to cook and take care of daily life. Now she is learning various recipes while working as a part-time nanny, learning how to take care of others. She knows that she doesn't have much strength, but she will do her part seriously. And Jody, who was on the isolated island, was holding his head with his hands. Why, I murmured. The surrounding areas have been bombed to a great extent, but I still haven't developed a rechargeable cannon. It was inevitable that I felt a little discouraged, and even wanted to quit for a while. After all, in the wilderness, except for the Poseidon accompanying him, there was not even a bird feather around. Not only does he have to study weapons, but he also has to resist the sudden loneliness and isolation. Thinking about the time spent with them, I regained my composure and cheered up. While they were practicing quietly, undercurrents are also beginning to surge around the world. First, the Revolutionary Army, led by Monkey D. Long, began to gradually reveal the revolution around the kingdom of Logia, and many kings were killed by the oppressed masses. The Marine headquarters temporarily dispatched several lieutenant generals to counter the rebellion. Next is the New World, where Kaido's forces and Whitebeard's forces have had conflicts over their territory many times. The first Captain Marco and Jin, the leader of the 3 disasters, fought many times, but there was no winner. The world government dispatched multiple CP agents to reach out to the 4 emperors. But before they even landed on the islands where the 4 emperors were, the news was leaked and they were killed by masters sent by the 4 emperors. It is rumored. The person who leaked the news is most likely Kazra, the commander of the Northern Army, of the Revolutionary Army. In response, the world government had to recall the CP agents and withdraw their hands from New World. The days passed. In March, Luo upgraded his weapon color and knowledge color. He had to play several games with Swain every day, although he lost every time. In April, Norton's strength increased greatly. He accumulated it in the battle with Haki every day, and his strength increased significantly with the naked eye. In July, Swain learned Conqueror's Entanglement during the battle with Rayleigh, and the fruit's ability was further developed. In September, after working hard day and night, Jody successfully experimented with a charging cannon. The charging material relied on compressed seawater. At the same time, Roland was certified as a chef in the kingdom of Sokafia and could cook 1,000 dishes. At the end of October, Norton and Hawkeye were able to remain undefeated for 10 minutes in a duel. His strong strength was praised by Hawkeye. He was ready to challenge another Shichibukai to try his hand, so they went to the Sabodi Islands to meet up. November. Swain and Luo also became much stronger under Rayleigh's guidance. Yi Luo has made the most obvious progress. He has mastered the training of Armed Color and Wisdom Color. Swain, on the other hand, only learned Conqueror's Entanglement, but was not very skilled at it. It's not possible to be as handy as Rayleigh. After all, what they learn is theoretical knowledge, and the real practice must be experienced in battle. This day, there were many people standing on Nine Snake Island. "Are you leaving now?" Hancock said reluctantly. "Yes, my appointment with my companions is coming soon." Swain and Luo answered while standing on a boat. "Isn't that still a month away?" she said quietly. Although I knew Swain was definitely going to leave, I still wanted to stay with him for a while longer. "I want to go to the East China Sea," Swain told the truth. He also wanted to spend some time with such a beautiful woman, but time was running out. "What are you going to do in the East China Sea?" Rayleigh also asked in confusion. After all, it was the hometown of his Captain Roger, so he naturally wanted to ask more questions. "I'm going to find an old friend. I wouldn't feel comfortable going to the New World without him," Swain said with a smile. Rayleigh didn't believe that Swain, who was born in South Blue, would have friends in the East China Sea. Swain naturally saw the disbelief of the teacher in front of him, and then said the name of this friend. He called a smile. Chapter 53 Shocking Change, Advertisement. A smile. Never heard of it. Rayleigh Kaido. Because later Kuzan left Marine and Sengoku abdicated, Marine lacked high-end combat power and launched a large-scale conscription to the world. Fujidora Yishao and Green Bull Aramaki were the generals who were later promoted exceptionally. If Swain wants to change the world situation and establish his own power from this big wave, he must have more high-end combat power. And after much thought, if he could add a strong general, the only one would be Yishao, a folk master. As for Green Bull, he really wasn't interested in this guy. Green Bull shares the same philosophy as Akainu, pursuing desperate justice. In his later performance, he just retreated after feeling the red-haired conquerors, which was a bit timid and lowered the general's strength. Later, despite the anger of Fleet Admiral Akainu, Fujitora still knelt down and apologized to all the people in Dressrosa. Swain wanted to take this strong man with both strength and courage under his command. But he has not considered whether it will backfire. If he does not give it a try, this matter will become his regret. Then, he waved goodbye to everyone. The sailboat underfoot can still move smoothly even when there is no wind. The distance from Nine Snake Island to the East China Sea is very long. Swain was driving at the fastest speed. From a distance, it looked like a bird flying along the sea level. It took 10 days to finally reach Donghai. The East China Sea is recognized as the weakest sea area and also the most peaceful sea area. Zihei village, just outside the beach. 7 or 8 children were practicing swordsmanship, and the wooden swords in their hands made a crackling sound when struck. "Yeah, I won," a child said happily. "It doesn't count, it doesn't count." "You must have stolen lessons from Uncle Yishao," the defeated child argued in a very unconvinced tone. "Master leads me in. Cultivation depends on oneself. Didn't you also find Uncle Yishao?" he sneered. Both of them were dissatisfied with each other. After the quarrel, they started to fight. The children around them quickly started to break up the fight. He didn't even notice a ship approaching in the distance. "Yo yo yo, look at those furry kids fighting." More than a dozen people got off the boat. The leader was holding a cigarette in his mouth and looking at the children's play with contempt. He is a well-known local bandit named Dean Berkeley, and he has always been ruthless. He usually likes to change his identity as a pirate or a bandit, and often sails to rob distant villages. Firstly, others did not know his identity, making it difficult for Marine to investigate him. Secondly, he had already squandered all the treasures and food in his village, and only then came out to rob homes. I happened to pass by Zihei village at this moment. Fortunately, some children noticed the person coming, and started yelling when they saw it was a pirate. "Stop fighting, the pirates are coming, run away." After being reminded by his voice, the children around him also fled in all directions like birds and animals. Bang bang bang. 3 gunshots were fired, and 2 children were shot and fell in a pool of blood. The remaining children heard the gunshots and ran even more panicked. "Go to the village chief quickly," one of the older children said. Then he was shot in the ear by Berkeley, suddenly. There was a buzzing sound in his ears, as if his chest was exploding. The other robbers saw their captain hunting excitedly, but they did not dare to disturb his interest. After all, if you offend him, your own people will be killed. After a few shots, Berkeley lost interest. Advertisement. "Search me for all the treasures in this village. Keep the woman here and kill everyone else," he said angrily. As they invaded, screams and pleas for mercy gradually came from the village. "We're almost there, Zihei village," Swain said excitedly. Luo on the side stood close to his long knife and said, I'm afraid that Yishao won't join us. Swain mentioned Fujitora to Lotto on the road, including his personality and work style. Huh. Who knows? Just like when I recruited you, how would you know if you don't try? Swain had a very good attitude. Even if he disagrees, he has no regrets. There. That village seems to be being invaded, Luo said with flashing eyes. Swain looked forward and saw that several streaks of gunpowder smoke were rising from the village, gradually floating into the air. He quickly adjusted his speed and rushed over. Swish, swish, swish. 100 meters high rose from the sea, and a small boat flew over. Master, can't you change the way? Luo shouted loudly. Room. He moved his fingers slightly, teleport both of them to the ground. Then, blah blah blah, it started to rain heavily. Sea sense. For a moment, the scene of rain falling across the place appeared in Swain's mind. Bandits were killing people everywhere, and disobedient men would behead at will, even if they knelt down to beg for mercy. The women were even more helpless. They were even bullied by 2 or 3 robbers at the same time. The scene with corpses everywhere was like a hell on earth. Huh? How come it rains when the sun is shining? The man who was R***G, the woman stopped and looked at the inexplicable heavy rain in the sky with confusion. But, as soon as he raised his head, he saw a scene that horrified his eyes. I saw a handsome young man appearing in the rain, holding a long knife in his hand and slashing at him. Poof! There wasn't even a scream, the head fell somewhere else. This kind of scene is also played out elsewhere, and it is Swain's incarnation of rain. Within 10 seconds, there were only a few bandits left in the village, and they were all gathered together by Luo. The screams around him also gradually subsided a lot, and then began to hurt again. Mom. Woo woo woo. The robber has been punished by God, please wake up quickly. A helpless little girl was pushing her dead mother and crying. Suddenly she felt someone touching her head. She looked up and saw that it was the Rain Man who had just rescued them. Brother, what happened to my mother? You can definitely save her, right? On his tired face, he looked at Swain with expectant eyes. It seemed that the man who had just saved him could also bring her mother back to life. Swain also felt uncomfortable, blaming himself for not coming earlier, so. Your mother, he went to a safe place and will be back soon, he comforted the girl. Swain made a gesture to Luo from behind. Luo was helpless, so he moved the body of the girl's mother away and replaced it with a dancing butterfly in its place. The little girl had never seen such a scene before. She immediately believed Swain in her heart and gradually stopped crying. Chapter 54 Fujitora's Decision with a Smile advertisement. It was not until evening that the bodies of the deceased were collected in the village. There were more than 200 people in the village, but now there are only about 80 people left. Looking at the few intact houses that had been burned down, the survivors also sighed. Swain, who was helping with the aftermath, heard a noise coming from behind. Turning around, he saw an old man being surrounded by a crowd. Thank you for your help. I am the mayor of this village. The old man's eyes were bloodshot and he spoke in an extremely hoarse voice. Apparently, he also had relatives killed in the robbery. You're welcome. My name is Swain. My name is Luo. Are you here to do business? The old man asked. After all, the only people who can come to their village are some businessmen. Because there are many people in cheap labor, they only deal with businessmen. No, I came here to have a laugh, Swain replied. He actually confessed the purpose of his trip, a smile? I didn't expect that he would save our lives again. The village chief obviously regarded Swain as a friend of Yishao, so he made this comment. He had something to do when he went to sea some time ago. Counting the time, he will be back in the next few days. If he were still there, those bandits wouldn't dare. The village chief became more and more sad as he spoke. A few more tears appeared on the old face. My condolences. Swain had no choice but to comfort him. Swain originally wanted to interrogate the leaders who were captured alive by Luo, but the villagers had already killed them to vent their anger, and even cut off their skin and flesh and ate them raw. It's enough to show how much hatred there is. In the next few days, Swain had no choice but to continue to stay here, and he could not give up halfway. And on the third day, a few kilometers away from the village, there was the sound of a fight. Slaughterhouse. Luo shouted. Teleport yourself behind the blind old man in front of you. Scalpel. Prepare to stab the old man in the heart with a knife. The old man turned his back to Luo, moved his hands calmly, and then said slowly. Gravity. An incomprehensible force poured on Luo's head, seeming to crush his head. Wah. What? The unexpected force caused the hat on his head to instantly deflate, and the movement of the knife in his hand began to slow down. There was a bang. He was directly pushed to the ground, and a huge pit appeared, which seemed to be bottomless. Baton. In just a few breaths, Luo escaped from this huge force. The boulder that pushed him into the ground hit the enemy in front of him. The blind old man struck again with a knife, and the gravity from the knife shattered the stone. This man is very strong, Luo said warily in his heart. His hands are also slowly accumulating the moves for the next attack. Don't do it, don't do it. At this moment, the village chief rushed to the place where the fight was taking place and quickly asked them to stop. Swain also appeared at the same time, also signaling Luo not to do anything. A smile. They are the saviors of the village, subsequently. The village chief explained clearly what happened a few days ago to Yishao, and then the misunderstanding was resolved. I'm so sorry, I wronged you. Yishao apologized quickly. Luo just listened silently and said nothing. What about Xiao Wei? Is he okay? Yishao asked. Xiao Wei is the one with the best swordsmanship among the children. He is also the child who has the best relationship with Yishao. The village chief did not answer. After just a moment of silence and a smile, he already knew that Xiao Wei was dead. It's so cruel, even the children are not spared, Yishao said calmly. But his hand was holding the hilt of the sword tightly, and he was extremely angry inside. Didn't Marine come to support? He asked again. I sent a distress signal to them, but they didn't show up, the village chief said helplessly. He understood Yishao's mood at this time, because he also lost a relative of his not long ago. A hole. What's the use of them? Can even a few robbers scare them away? When Yishao heard that Marine did not come to support him, he could no longer hold back his emotions. Swain looked at the scene in front of him and found it difficult to calm down. It's a blessing not to be able to see things. There are too many dirty and nasty people in the world that people can't bear to look at. This is the reason why a smile can destroy one's eyes. Advertisement. This middle-aged man who was devoted to justice and benevolence became confused at this moment. I'll take a step back now. He walked toward the village regardless of everyone. The village chief wanted to say something more to him, but was caught by Swain. Just leave him alone. Swain watched the lonely figure disappear from sight. Yishao did not go to Xiao Wei's grave. The child he regarded as a relative has now left him. Half a life is wasted, half a life is wandering. He was shaken in his heart. Could it be that the justice he upheld was wrong all along? Looking back on the past, only the sunset at this moment can shine into his heart. Grandpa Yishao. A girl's voice sounded. After smiling to relieve his mood, he said, It turns out to be Asha. Why are you here? I'm here to bring food to my mother, she said with a blushing face. Obviously she had just gone to cook. Well, then your mother will definitely be able to eat it in that beautiful place. Yishao comforted her. Wow. Grandpa Yishao and Big Brother said the same thing. It seems he didn't lie to me. Asha became even more excited after hearing Yishao speak. It seemed like it would give her more hope. Is he the big brother who saved you? Yes. That's the big brother wearing the hat next to him. Asha is the little girl Swain first rescued. Grandpa Yishao, do you want to eat? Xiaoxia made it by himself. There was a smile on her face, as if she had forgotten the sadness of the past few days. Her smile seemed to be contagious, and every time she smiled, she started laughing too. He took the bread from the girl, although it was made of the coarsest flour. But he still ate deliciously. The next morning, as soon as he smiled, he was led by Asha and found Swain. Big brother. Swain seemed to have an affinity, and Asha became happy when she saw him. I forgot to thank you yesterday, so I came here today to express my gratitude, Yishao said. You're welcome. I couldn't stand the behavior of these robbers, so I came to the rescue. I heard from the village chief that you came to see me for something? If I can help you, it doesn't matter, Yishao promised Swain. Swain said frankly. I want to invite you to be my crew member and accompany me to Loftru. Yishao did not respond after hearing this. Uncle, don't deceive yourself anymore. Today's world government is already extremely corrupt, and Marine will gradually become a tool under its rule. Dragon people, high officials and nobles, aren't they the chief culprits of this world's war? Why is it not illegal for the celestial dragons to massacre civilians, but Marine does not arrest them, but still protects them? Isn't this the result of putting the cart before the horse? When he heard this, his expression changed. Swain continued. What about Shichibukai? Why did Marine give him legal privateering rights? This sentence triggered a smile. After he later became a general, the first thing he did was to demand the disbandment and arrest of the Shichibukai. Your Excellency, he found himself speechless. What Swain said makes sense, and no matter how you argue, you can't change these existing things. Asha listened to their argument and pulled at the corners of both parties' clothes in fear, hoping that they would reconcile. Swain touched Asha's head and told her not to worry. Uncle, come on my ship and let's change the world together. Create an era without war. I swear that I will only wage war against the celestial dragons and not affect civilians. Swain dismissed Yishao's worries. Then he continued. Even if you participate in Marine, can you change the decision-making of the world government? After Swain finished speaking, he fell silent, leaving Yishao to think by himself. If this couldn't change his determination, then Swain had no choice but to leave. It's hard for me to make a decision. Faced with years of heartache, how can we change our minds with just a few words? Swain said helplessly. How about a gamble? If I win, you can board my ship. If I lose, you can leave here. He understood that Yishao's biggest hobby was gambling. The other party was silent for a moment, then nodded in agreement. Yishao took out 3 dice and threw them in the air. 664. Damn. What a joke. Swain's head suddenly felt as big as a bucket. It seems that he really has no fate with future General Fujitora. He also threw it in the air. 554. Just one smaller, total loser. Swain also didn't want to deceive the blind uncle in front of him. Just when the results were announced, Big Brother won, Asha suddenly shouted. Chapter 55 Join advertisement, Big Brother won. Swain, who was about to announce the results, took a deep look at Asha. There was gratitude in his eyes. Although Asha didn't say it, she was still sensible in her heart. The big brother in front of her said that she wanted to build a world without war, and that was the world that he longed for. A remote village seems to have been almost forgotten by Marine. It is shrouded in war and poverty. If such a world could be built, then she and the villagers would live happily. Oh, really? I'm really unlucky, Yishao said. I will keep my promise. There was a hint of worry in his expression. I will move this village near the marine branch, Swain said. He could naturally understand what Yishao was worried about. Then I can rest assured, this uncle is really cute. Seeing the two getting back together, Asha said happily, then big brother must also keep his promise. He gestured with his hand in the air and said, build a world without war. Seeing her cute appearance, Swain laughed loudly, I will definitely do it. Now this young man who has grown up is no longer the person who only thinks about adventure. He also carries many burdens on his shoulders. In the evening, a group of people sat together and had barbecue. The villagers celebrated their survival and hoped that it would take away their sorrow. Master, it's time for us to leave, Luo said. Swain nodded. 14 days have passed, and there is only half a month left before his companions meet up. He glanced around, with a bit of reluctance on everyone's faces. But, they knew Swain had more important things to do. I'll move the island first tonight, Swain said. Because we passed a marine station on the way, it didn't hinder normal sailing time. After dinner, everyone left one after another, leaving only the three of them. Do you need my help? Yishao said. Although he didn't know what method Swain could use to remove the island, he believed that it would take a lot of effort. No. Swain refused with a smile. Then he slowly rose into the air, and with a smile, he saw Swain's movements from what he saw. I saw him stretching out his hands, then clenching his fists, and suddenly crossing his arms. Boom. Like an earthquake, the small island began to shake, and the villagers on the island also looked horrified. Thinking that some bandits were coming in with cannonballs, they all hid in their houses and locked the windows and doors. Fortunately, the shock disappeared after a while, and their anxious hearts gradually relaxed. They didn't understand the cause of the vibration, but Yishao felt it clearly. Swain only waved his arms a few times, and the island was suddenly lifted up by 1 meter by the seawater, and then floated at an extremely fast speed. And it's very stable. What kind of control this is? Yishao couldn't help but sigh. Luo sat next to him calmly, apparently used to it. He could understand the emotion of a smile. Swain just changed the speed of the boat, which already surprised him. Not to mention, nowadays, it is possible to hold up a small island. How can people not be surprised? The sky has gradually turned white. Swain changed into the original small boat, and the three of them changed the channel and set off towards the Saboti Islands. Time moves forward a few days. At this time, Swain had just arrived in Zihei village. And an uninvited guest also came to Nine Snake Island. A man wearing a mask, with long white hair, and a pair of conspicuous wings behind him appeared here. Norton now wants to challenge Hancock, one of the Shichibukai empresses. This was his first battle to test his practice. The fire behind him lit up the sky. Nine Snakes Island immediately went on alert, and the soldiers aimed their weapons at the enemies in the sky. Does anyone dare to come out and fight with me? Norton yelled. The sound travels through the air to the island. Suddenly, there was a commotion. This man is too arrogant, I will go out and kill him, Mary said angrily. Advertisement, however, Sonia stopped her with her hands. Don't be impulsive. If you dare to challenge us alone, you will probably be very strong. It's better to wait until sister comes before making plans, Sonia said calmly. But how could Mary allow Norton to shout outside? In an instant, he transformed into half man and half snake and rushed out. Go to hell, kid. When Norton saw someone attacking him, he was not afraid of being rejoiced. His body flashed and he rushed towards Mary. The weapons of both sides collided with a click. The spear in Mary's hand breaks, and the tip of Norton's knife was almost reaching her neck. Fragrant feet. A shadow flew sideways from Norton. Norton had no choice but to put away the knife and put the weapon in front of his chest. Ding! Hancock has domineering energy attached to his feet and repels Norton. My sister who dares to hurt me is such a rude person, Hancock yelled. Norton stopped his flying body in the air and looked at the enemy in front of him. He had no sympathy for her, and the fighting spirit in his heart grew more and more. The long knife in his hand is domineering and flame-like, like a life reaper. Red Lotus. The long knife in Norton's hand burst into liquid flames, and then he swung it at Hancock. Suddenly there was a slash several meters long, with a high temperature that could burn the air. Captive arrow. Countless pink arrows began to shoot at the slash. Puff 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 puff. Like a moth flying to a flame, the arrow disappeared without any movement after it sank inside. Hancock ducked back, and the slash made a deep gash where she had just been, and there were burning flames on it. Hancock looked at Norton in front of him solemnly. She could feel that this man was very strong. Even if it entangles Conqueror's corner, it only breaks through his defense. Hey, don't be distracted. Norton suddenly disappeared from her eyes and came to her side. Norton volleyed. Hancock quickly put his hands in front of his chest to defend himself, but it was still difficult to resist the force, and his body retreated like a cannonball. No match for Norton at all. He has been fighting Hawkeye for a year, and his current strength has undergone a qualitative change. Sister, Sonia and Mary shouted at the same time. Sonia helped Hancock up and said, "This man is too strong. Rayleigh and Swain have also left this place. We are no match for him at all." But even so, she still stood in front of Hancock. "Huh?" Norton heard a familiar name. "You know my captain?" "He's your captain. And you are?" Now it was the turn of both parties to become confused. "I'm Norton." In fact, it's not surprising that they couldn't recognize him, because the Norton on the reward order was covered in armor and his appearance couldn't be seen at all. Now that he has taken off his armor and only wears a mask, it is naturally difficult to identify him. "The person you just beat was your captain's woman," Mary said angrily. The captain's woman? Norton had no doubt at all. After all, the other party was a famously cold empress and would not joke about such things. He quickly took off his mask, revealed his true face and bowed to apologize. "I bet it was the flood that washed away the Dragon King temple. I almost committed a heinous crime." "You rude fellow. You are so far behind your captain," Hancock sneered. After all, he was his sweetheart's crew member. How could he still kill him? What's more, he couldn't beat him either. "Swain went to the East China Sea and is probably on his way to the Sabodi Islands now," Sonia said. "Take good care of him for me." Hancock changed his appearance when he thought of Swain. "Don't worry, sister-in-law. I will definitely take good care of him for you," Norton promised, patting his chest. After all, if she complained to Swain, wouldn't she be beaten in vain? When Hancock heard Norton calling him sister-in-law, he said shyly, "Okay, I forgive you for being rude just now." The idea of falling in love was so timely that the two sisters on the side were helpless. Subsequently, Norton said goodbye to them and left this place that made him a little embarrassed.